Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray, and we are here to jump into episode 4 of season 3 of Interview with the Vampire, or season 1 of the Vampire Lestat. So, last episode was a great episode. I mean, I still think that there's a couple of uneven things about it, but by and large, especially that back half was incredible. What an incredible back half of an episode. And we had the best song so far, The Loneliness. It was just really good. So we're going into this episode fresh off of Lestat saying, hey, bring on the muses, and he's ready to kind of, I assume, like really more closely face his truth. And also the final scene was Armand back in the mix in modern day. He is joining Alex from the band in AA in Ohio. So let's see what the hell that's going to be about. I do know that this episode is called The Devil's Road, which is a departure from the previous episode titles, which have all been cities. But The Devil's Road is sort of a place, sort of. I mean, it's not really a place. It's just the journey that Lestat and Gabby take after they leave Paris. So I assume we're going to be getting into that. But before, Lestat makes it to the temple, let's call it. So I'm curious to see why this episode has a different title and it's not like a city name on their tour, so we'll see. All right. I'm honestly ready to just watch the episode. I'm going to try my best, you guys, to not do a 4-hour video like I did last time. That video was crazy. I don't know what the hell was going on, but I had the yap. 4 hours is crazy. I'm editing it right now, and let me tell you. But to be fair, I'm probably just going to keep all of the discussion in there. I'm not going to be editing the discussion. So it's still not that bad in terms of editing, but I'm just trying to figure out, that video is probably going to be like 3 hours if I leave it and don't split it up. But you guys have been voting, so I'm going to check the votes right before I finish publishing the video and see whether or not you want to keep it together or split it. It's up to you. I mean, I guess it's the same amount of, information, whether it's together or split. But obviously, if I split it, the video that has the actual reaction is going to have way higher views than the video that's just pure discussion. It's just the nature of reaction channels that a lot of times people don't stay for discussion. But if I do post it with the full video, then what it's going to mean for the channel is that people are going to stop watching after the reaction, and then the views are going to tank during the discussion, which is going to bring down the video in the algorithm. So I have to think about the algorithm a little bit. But I mean, my channel doesn't really run like that. I know it's not the best way to run a reaction channel, especially really long videos like I do and stuff like that, because it's more likely to not have as many views. And then the less views that you have nowadays, YouTube algorithm just buries your video, and you can't sort on YouTube by date anymore or by most recent or whatever. So you can't like find people by just seeing what's the most recent video about this topic. They remove that so that they can keep pushing the stuff that they want to push or whatever for their algorithm, instead of just showing me a very logical, chronological search. But whatever. Anyway, this video is not supposed to be about YouTube, so we'll table it. So I'll figure out what I want to do with the video, but you guys will see it, I'm sure. It might be a little late because it is a long video, but I'll do my best, okay? All right, now, this episode, I'm ready to just start it. Let's just get into it.
Cliches about the road can be concussive, but it doesn't make them
Sorry,
conclusive.
talking about the road makes me think of Agatha all along.
It can grind you down or deliver you.
Okay.
Which would it be for our marginal mystery?
Sorry,
tour
that
back
made me
in the
think of
bosom
Agatha
the
all
United
along, and then
United
suddenly
States.
choke me. I was like, oh
Digitally,
goodness.
there was some optimism as somewhere between the P. Diddler and Chipotle's new adobo ranch sauce, the Vampire Lestat found itself momentarily trending.
Did we just make
Cell phone
a...
footage of yours truly went
Diddy
viral as
reference?
both
That's weird.
irrefutable proof of the cloud gift
I felt
and
a bit.
deepfake antichrist.
I think it's too soon to make any kind of PDD reference. Sorry. I think it's a bit too
The
soon.
hits were predominantly bots, paid for out of the Talamasca discretionary fund.
The rest would go poorly. The blood tests that you would administer on me would be weird.
Get the body cam.
Oh, yeah, get the body cam. Although I don't know how body cams work. Do they, like, transmit back to a cloud? Or to a box in the
Officer Galugale took a week off.
car? or
TC
something?
thought for the first time maybe she could be a vampire.
Oh,
Larry wished
she
his
wants to be a
brother could have
vampire.
been there.
Pause. Before we, I probably should let the scene play out. But yeah, so TC was the drummer that was referenced in the last episode, right? So was that foreshadowing that TC is going to become a vampire? But how would Magnus foreshadow it before it happened and say, yes, you're going to... Is this like... Is that a sign that subconsciously Lestat has been thinking about turning TC from a long time ago? And when he was hallucinating Magnus and talking about all his fledglings around the table, he subconsciously added TC in there because he kind of knew that he was going to turn her. But we haven't seen my problem with that is that we haven't seen a real relationship like building the season between Lestat and TC. You know, I feel like we've had more touch bases with Larry, obviously the most, and with Salamander of all people. So like, I don't feel like we've built up a relationship enough with TC to make me understand why Lestat would turn her, you know? Like, even if it was just for fun, I still feel like we could have had more interactions between TC and Lestat to really like sell that, yeah, at some point he's going to turn her into a vampire, you know? Like, I'm not saying that they don't have a relationship. Obviously they are in a band and they've known each other for at least a couple of years now. But it still feels a little like, if he does turn her, why? That's out of nowhere. You know, I've been thinking about the albums, the album numbers, because, you know, whenever they start a new section, they'll say, you know, the failures, this album side A or side B, depending. I have not been keeping track of that. And a part of me actually wants to, after this episode, rewatch the season and actually keep track of each of those albums, and because I know for sure I have been noticing them enough to know that they're not in order. Like, we jump from 2 to 10 to back to 3 to, you know, like, it's not in order at all. So I'm curious to know what scenes happen on what albums, and rearrange them in order to see if maybe there's some kind of relationship stuff that I'm missing because it's not happening linearly, right? I'm tempted to do that. But it might take me a while, so I might do it next weekend or something. So we'll see. But before the next episode, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, let's keep going.
And on a computer hard drive in a public
This is
library
how I end up with
somewhere on
4-hour
the eastern
videos.
Seaboard, a manifesto. Off the Autobahn, they're called Raststätte. On the Devil's Road, these liminal spaces have no name, for the occupants are not aware they need rest or service.
What can I get you?
Liminal spaces.
Hi.
We love a liminal space, baby.
Anything to drink.
Louis Dulac, or Thomas Pitt,
It's very
or he
Americana.
who licenses and franchises the night, was more feared than wanted now. and he could do his business wherever he wanted.
So he's not getting
And
jumped by
being in the
random
same
vampires
space
anymore
with
because he
her
was killing them
was
like
satisfying
crazy.
in a way the destruction of the vampire Bruce was not.
Yeah, I can see that.
He told himself he was in control.
I mean, we
They
all
all
felt
did
like
that year.
Bruce's death was a bit
Best thing to do with our
empty
burger is let it cool
anyway.
till the
So
grease is all soaked. Bread's
that
all
makes
wet.
sense. Oh, she's
I'm getting to it.
Did I
Chef
not
gets
notice
all
that she
everyone
was
takes, come
British
back.
in the last
Untouched.
episode? I mean, I know the actress is British, but I mean the character. I don't think I noticed that. So that's interesting. Like, you used to eat a meal a week, right? You should be used to it.
Bethnal Green?
I'm a waitress. My arse ain't on the menu, but it does cost a tip better. You can afford it.
Oh, no, you got me wrong. I'm, spoken for.
You're gay.
Gay.
Ah,
Mum,
gay.
you're
Okay.
You order burgers, you don't like burgers.
Stood up on the verses with an A. All the verses on an A with a turnaround on G, like they're flipping their ponytails before every line.
Stop it! We're talking to two of the majors. Why would I tell you that?
I do like that that was the most interaction, by the way, that they've had, TC and Lestat have had this entire show so far. So thank you for actually addressing my problem. I was like, why would he make her into a vampire? I feel like we haven't built a connection with her, and now they've given me a scene of them like, hey, let's build a song together. So I think we're not going to go with Salamander's Big Bus song. Okay.
Warner. Who? And you die.
If vampires kill and Jesus...
Why do you have your bathroom just in your living room? We couldn't have put a little bar up there to like close the curtain or something? Something? Like, we couldn't, why? There's no reason we couldn't have this area in an enclosure. Like, at least the toilet. I would prefer not having the shower in the middle of the room, but I get how that could be sexy or sensual in some way, extravagant in some way, but the toilet needs a curtain. The toilet needs a curtain. What are we doing? Why are we taking a shit in the middle of the room while other people are there? That's weird. That's nasty. Why is this bus so gross? Why is everything so gross?
Let's see what failures we can pin on dear old Mom.
Not much left to tell, I'm afraid. She took like Nikki did.
A great love. Not your first love.
Not him hallucinating Nikki. All right.
You left the theater to your maker and stole away by carriage.
Okay.
She stopped talking almost immediately.
Once we're there,
The way he is just
There is.
bold-faced lying.
we are fallen French nobles.
A lesser family.
No, I know. We will say that is our dear departed Uncle Marius.
Uncle Marius?
Who was bored to death by our tart nephew Armand.
That's a weird thing to say. Oh, that's a weird thing to say. So he definitely told them all about Marius grooming him. That's weird. That's a weird thing to say. But it makes sense for Gabby, of all people, to fucking say that because she don't see nothing wrong with grooming children.
And what of the other coven, madame?
The way she's so
Then we
awful,
raised
actually.
the
My
Damn.
little mother was vibrant. As a vampire, she was remote. She could not function.
So it's the opposite. So he's saying the opposite because she was very remote as a
would not
human,
hunt.
but as a vampire, she's more.
She used the
She's
last
settled
advantage
into
to
herself.
write me a note. Leave me in a clearing. Leave me to the day.
On a plane. On the way to see her. My sister told me when I landed.
See, there's gravitas to how he's talking about it. That feels real, whereas
And where
his
were you when
feels
your daddy
fake.
killed you on an airplane, Dan? On your way to see your daughters? Your Alice? Or just your book agent?
Okay, so we knew from the previous episode, 2 episodes ago, I think. No, it was last episode. I always say 2 episodes ago, but it's last episode. It's a big episode. We do know from that episode that there was a month in between the end of the interview in Dubai and when Daniel was turned. But now we're saying that he was turned on a plane, which is very much like he was turned in the books. Are we going to get the actual book turning? Because I have been operating under the belief that in the decision to merge David and Daniel's characters, that we were no longer going to get the book turning at all. Like we were going to get something completely different that's actually more in line with David's non-consensual, violent turning, where Lestat essentially does the same thing to David that Magnus does to him. He assaults him and turns him forcibly without his consent, and it's very much framed like an assault, right? He does that to David in repeating that cycle of just, you know, just as he was abused, he abuses others, etc., etc. It's like a big turning point for Lestat's character, in my opinion, because then that happens in Tale of the Body Thief, and he also does another sexual assault in that one, and those two experiences and his experience in Tale of the Body Thief shifts his character in a certain way that prepares him for Memnoch the Devil. So when you get to him in Memnoch the Devil, and you get the whole premise of the devil coming and saying, hey, I want you to rule hell with me, he has just recently done one of the most heinous things he's done in the books. You know, he's done a lot of heinous things in the books, but that was the most recent and the most present in his mind. And of course, all throughout that book, he also was thinking about Claudia and how much he wronged Claudia, and she was haunting him and everything like that. And it culminated in this really savage, awful, violent murder and assault of David. So I thought that they were shifting that over to Armand, where we just had him do like the most despicable thing that he does, which is lynch Claudia. And then he gets caught or he gets exposed, and then have it culminate in him, you know, losing it and savagely killing Daniel, like in Dubai. And I thought that they were going to keep that and then do like a interesting character parallel with the way that Amadeo, when he was first kidnapped by the Children of Darkness, was starved to the point of insanity. And, you know, for weeks and weeks and weeks, he was starved. And then they set Ricardo into his cell, and in his blind hunger with absolute like savage animalistic hunger, he attacks and kills his best friend accidentally, and then he tries to turn him and it doesn't work, and then he's just sitting in the cell with his corpse for days and days and days and days, right? It was like a really insanely traumatic experience that, in my opinion, is probably one of the main things that broke his psyche when he was being brainwashed and tortured and indoctrinated. And I thought that they were going to do like an interesting parallel where he, in a moment of savage, you know, kind of rage, he turns Daniel, and it reminds him of turning Ricardo, right? Or trying to turn Ricardo, where Ricardo failed, he didn't take, Daniel does take as a vampire, etc. But interestingly, this season they've debunked that because they put a month in between those time periods. So it could not possibly have been a moment of blind rage just fresh off of his divorce or anything. Like, no, it's like something else. And now we're getting that it happened on a plane, which means that we're going to get probably the plane turning. I also had a different theory because they were merging David and Daniel's character. I thought we were still going to get the body thief storyline where he gets body swapped permanently. I've been making myself get used to the idea of that, of them body swapping Eric Bogosian out, which I've told you guys I wouldn't love, but I would accept it if that's the way they wanted to go. And I thought we were going to get David's turning when he's in Daniel's body, and then obviously have them fall in love or reconnect and be in love again, whatever, past DM and all that. And then have the body swap happen Armand loses fucking shit because he thinks Daniel is dead, finds out he's actually in a new body, but now a human body. And then I thought we were going to get the actual Devil's Minion turning that's more loving and tender in the second round. That's what I thought they were going to do, something like that, so we get both David's turning and Daniel's turning all in the same storyline. But now I'm like, oh no, they're not. They're just going to do straight up Devil's Minion. All right, Devil's Minion turning. Sorry to pause again. I hate this UI, you guys. I hate this UI so bad.
And where were you when your daddy killed you on an airplane, Dan? On your way to see your daughters?
Oh. Oop. It's Armand hiding in the bushes. He's somewhere. He's somewhere close by.
Hello, Daniel.
Oh, or he's right here. Our first Daniel Armand scene of the series. It's me is crazy.
Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad is crazier.
I can only imagine your anger.
Stop!
Oh.
Turn around, walk in the opposite direction until you're halfway around the world. One of that, lose my number. After that, fuck off!
Oh. He's quite angry, huh?
I have been enduring intense conversation with myself. And as part of this journey, I wish to read you something I have written from the deepest regions of my soul. Dear Daniel, of all things that walk the...
What? Are you saying... Is he doing the 12-step program? Is he making amends right now? Are you telling me that he was dead ass about AA last episode? That it wasn't actually a nefarious plan, that he was being 100% truthful about going to AA? No, there's no fucking way. There's no way. Did he come up here with a letter, a Dear Daniel letter? Oh no. This is quite literally the funniest way they could have taken that. What the hell? Oh my god. Okay, that's funny. That's funny as hell. Oh my god. So, no, there's just no way. There's no way. There's no way. He's really... I'm gonna go back. That's funny. Oh my god.
I have been enduring intense conversation with
look at his
myself.
cute hair, though.
And as part of this journey, I wish to read you something
super
I have written from the deepest regions of my soul.
Oh my god.
Dear Daniel,
Anyway.
of all things that walk the garden, it is you I have done the most harm to, and it is to you I owe amends.
I'll save the actual commentary to after
doing
the scene. Yeah, right?
I know this is 52 years
Wait
late.
a minute, what group would have you?
I know
what,
this-
the pseudologia pensioner fuckboys for sobriety?
I know when we first met...
Wait. Stop.
I don't know what that
I've
word
done this
means, but
myself
I'll figure it
once.
out.
Let me try. Hey, son. Dad here. Sorry about the deadbeat, no child support vibe I've been giving off for the past 2 years. Blood sucks. And, by the way,
no,
I'm
sir.
a friendless bottom twink sociopath.
No!
Sorry about San Francisco. And hey, a big time sorry about every second in your life in between. The 2 divorces, the blackout year.
Why are you putting that on Armand, sir?
5 trips to rehab. The year listening to Fish.
Armand didn't make you
All on
treat
me.
your wives
But
like
hey,
shit
boyo,
and your
you
daughters
have
like
to
shit,
admit
sir.
That it really does all boomerang round at Castro Street and oops. Pick up the tab, will you, Pops?
Oh, but look at his face. Oh, wait. Oh, before we go into this next scene, because I actually want to say something. His face at the end there was really, aw. Daniel's so, like, obviously he's very angry, so, which makes sense, because like he said, you abandoned him, Armand. What the fuck, bro? Sorry. There was something that he said, that was interesting.
Years. Sorry about...
Sorry. I fucking hate this UI, y'all. There was something that Armand said here that I thought was interesting.
I have been enduring intense conversation with myself.
That's funny. Enduring intense conversation with myself. The imagery of that is goofy. He's been sitting in the mirror looking at himself and like, you can do this. You can do this. It's like, come on, you can make yourself better. All right.
And as part of
but
this
no,
journey,
that's not what I
wish
want to
read
talk
you
about.
Something I have written from the deepest regions of my soul. Dear Daniel, of all things that walk the garden, it is you I have done the most harm to, and
yeah, that's interesting. There's a couple of interesting things in that. I really like that he called it the garden. If you know anything about the books, you know the concept of the Savage Garden, which was referenced a couple of times in the first and second season. The concept of the Savage Garden is a philosophical idea that Lestat has about the world, the nature of the world and the nature of vampirism and living in that world, right? This idea that the earth is a savage garden and we all have to make our way through it, the pain of it in order to essentially self-actualize, right? It's a repeated idea that he believes that the world is, very savage and we all just have to figure out how to survive. It's where the band Savage Garden gets the name Savage Garden, from Anne Rice's books. And he says this often, like he has, and especially, I believe, I want to say that the Vampire Lestat book is the first time that we get him talking about the Savage Garden. I don't think he mentions it in Interview with the Vampire, but I can't remember that book as much. But definitely he introduces the concept in the Vampire Lestat book. Or he definitely talks about it for sure in that book and then from then going forward. But he also talks about it with Armand, and we're not getting a lot of the philosophical stuff between Armand and Lestat this season, which is a fucking shame, actually. It's one of my biggest gripes is that we aren't getting a lot of the historical stuff that builds the foundation for a lot of these relationships, right? It's the biggest, I think, sore point for me of the season so far. Is that we're not getting a lot of the philosophical stuff, the ideological stuff that I think is actually super interesting. But I like the concept that clearly the conversation did happen between Armand and Lestat because he has the concept of the garden, and he took that into himself. He took that ideology into himself and is ruminating on it as he thinks about his own relationships and his own journey in the garden itself. And he changed him in New Jersey, which is the Garden State. That's funny. Do you think Armand intentionally turned him in New Jersey because it's the Garden State? Isn't that the Garden State? Am I tripping? That's the Garden State, right? Okay. I was like, I had to do a quick Google. Yes, New Jersey is the Garden State. Do you think that he chose that because it's the Garden State? Because I think it's funny that Daniel was hung up on that one detail of like, how could you change me in Newark? Why would you change me in New Jersey? You could have changed me in New York. And that's like a sore point for him. It's funny. That's funny. Sorry. I'm coming down with something. Anyway, so back to the concept. I do like the idea that he's clearly had that conversation with Lestat, and he's taken that part of Lestat's ideology and shifting, because Lestat breaks down all of his structures previously that he clung to when he destroys the coven under the Children of Darkness coven under Lioncourt, right? And then they build something new with the Théâtre Vampire, right? But obviously it gets corrupted because a lot of the same lessons that Armand were brainwashed into Armand and that he was indoctrinated with carried forward. And it's not until you get to modern day and to the trial and the death of Claudia that he finally starts to let go of some of those things. Not everything. Again, a lot of stuff is just ingrained in him now. He's spent, hundreds of years being indoctrinated in a cult. He's not going to 100% get rid of all of his cult ideology completely, but he starts working on it. And it starts to fall away. And Lestat's conversations with him and philosophical arguments with him, Armand, Gabby, and Alessandra, who we haven't seen in the show yet, these four going back and forth philosophically with each other start to ingrain themselves in Armand. And I think it's nice that we see that here. And I like that he has taken that into himself, even just subtly, that he started to refer to the earth as the garden. He mentioned it, like I said, we had a reference in the first episode with Lestat where he says it to Louis. And then we have a reference from Armand to Louis in the second season when he's about to kill him in the sewers. And he says, what did he call it? The Savage Garden, and then he talks about his own weakness, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, interesting. He also said in this section, I've done the worst harm to you, which makes sense for Armand because he believes in his heart of hearts that turning somebody into a vampire is the worst crime, the worst evil you can do to somebody else. So he feels probably the most guilt about, if he feels any guilt at all about anything that he's done, this is the one thing that he feels guilty about, because it's been his belief for 500 years that turning somebody into a vampire is the worst thing that you can do to somebody, and he is never going to do it. He made a vow to never, ever turn a fledgling, and then he did. Oof. That makes sense.
It is to you I owe amends.
Are you doing the steps?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I'm just rewatching
I know
the
this
scene.
is 52 years late.
Wait a minute. What group
52 years
would
late,
have
all right.
you?
I know
What, the
this.
pseudologia pincher?
Oh, yeah. What the hell is pseudologia? I don't know that word. Pseudologia. Let's break the word down. Pseudo, fake. Logia, logic. Ideas, maybe. Fake ideas. Or pseudo is like more like imitation, maybe. Like a grifter? Is this or like a liar? Maybe pseudologia. Like somebody who's a con man or a liar or something like that. Pseudologia. Yeah, probably something like that. So pseudologia pensioner. Fuckboys. He is a fuckboy though. For sobriety. That shit is funny.
Boys for sobriety?
I know when we first met.
Wait. Stop. I've done this myself once. Let me try. Hey, son. Dad here. Sorry about the deadbeat, no child support vibe I've been giving off.
The irony of Daniel, of all people, berating somebody for being a deadbeat dad. Like I said, why are you trying to put that on Armand, sir? Like, no, you need to take responsibility for your shit, actually. Like, don't be putting your failed marriages and your shit relationships with your own daughters on Armand, by the way. That's crazy. But I think it's interesting that he's now getting a taste of his own medicine, shall we say? Where it's like, yeah, you were absolutely awful to your own daughters, and now your own vampire dad has abandoned you for 2 years. And guess what? If we're being honest, Armand coming back now means that he came back and tried to be in your life way sooner than you ever tried to be in your daughters' lives. So what? I don't think you actually have a leg to stand on, to be honest. Talking about deadbeat. At least he coming back after 2 years with an apology and is making an attempt. I don't see, oh, I did this once. You did it once? Your daughters don't even talk to you? Sir,
for the past
please.
2 years. Sorry about killing you on a private jet.
I mean, to be fair, Armand did kill him and torture him and brainwash him. But not about the deadbeat
and
part.
One more thing, you're not going to get any of my special vamp skills because my blood sucks. And oh, by the way,
that seemed like a
I'm
you problem because his
bottom
blood is
twink
elite.
sociopath.
So
sorry about Dubai.
the twink thing is killing me because Armand's not really a twink. Like, I feel like twink is now in the in the zeitgeist in a way that's like very terribly misused. It's like if a queer man is not buff, then they're a twink, and it's like, no. People constantly misuse
your vampire birth certificate resides
queer
in fucking
terminology.
And one more thing, you're not going to get any of my special
Yeah.
vamp
Okay,
skills
the vamp skills?
because my
No,
blood
that's
sucks.
you.
And,
Also,
oh,
you're
by
2
the way,
years
I'm a
old. You're not going to
friendless
have
bottom
the
twink
ability to do
sociopath.
anything yet, sir.
Sorry about Dubai. Sorry about... I'm really sorry about that, Danny. It was my job to put you out of your misery.
Yeah,
But
this
hey,
also caught
when
my
a bucket
eye.
of Louisiana fried chicken walks into the room and says, stop, well, what can I say?
Calling Louis a bucket of Louisiana fried chicken, that feels racially motivated. that feels really racially motivated, Danny. Good Lord. I guess he's not above that, but still, goodness. Interesting. Was he saying that he wished that Armand killed him in San Francisco? Is that what he's saying there?
Castro Street and your weekend at Mengele's, doesn't it? It was my job to...
Yeah. What was that? Is he saying that he wishes that he had just died right there in San Francisco? I mean, I know things have not exactly been great for him in a number of ways, but like I said, I'm sorry, but a lot of that is your fault. It's not exactly Armand's fault. Some of it is, and certainly he sent him down a specific path. It's tough. It's tough to know, like, okay, would his life be shit now if Armand had never kidnapped and tortured him in the 70s? Or held him hostage? And I guess the answer is probably not. But he also erased that memory. So it's not like he erased that memory. So you didn't even know about that. You just thought you were, you got high one time and saw a burnt guy in your mind or burnt junkie in your mind. And, of course, we found out later that it turns out to be a Louis. Which, again, crazy joke to make there. Like, I'm so sorry. That was an insane joke. Anyway, whatever. So we find out later that's Louis, but that's his only memory. So most of his life choices, other than the fact that he stayed a journalist, because Louis put that kind of gas in his mind. Is it gas? Gaish? I never know how to say that word, and I feel like I always look it up and always immediately forget the correct pronunciation. But a spell almost in his mind to make him want to be a reporter and stay a reporter, because stories must be told and all that. But is he saying that because his life and all of his life choices have been shit, which he's now, for whatever reason, putting that all on Armand, which I think is unfair, actually. But is he saying it was so terrible that he wished he had just died when he was 20 years old? That's a bit dark. That's dark.
Put you out of your misery. But hey, oops. Pick up the tab, will you, Pops?
Every time he calls him Dad is hilarious. That's going to be funny as fuck forever, I think. It's very much leaning into the Anne Rice faux sex that always happens between maker-fledgling romantic pairings.
Richest man in the world, according to welfare. Ceiling tiles fell off the ceiling in my flat, and mice fell out.
Lucky as mice, not rats.
And wires fell dangling down.
That was dark. Sorry, rat? Oh, God. When she was put in the rat box? Oh, no. That was dark as fuck, Louis. Oh, God. Oh, no.
In the living room, had to duct tape the electronics to the wall. I got a mixed set of punters, but you're the only one watching me like I'm Netflix.
Yeah, what's going on? It's weird. You're stalking the shit out of this girl, sir. It's weird. It's weird. That was a lot of dialogue that we just got, by the way, from Regina. Very much like, hey, how can we catch you up on everything you need to know about Regina and her life? It wasn't quite... It felt a little exposition dumpy, but it's fine.
Oh, if I'm bothering you,
Regina!
it's just you've been helping me do something about your mice problem. Let's talk about that.
Or is it your year 3 teacher hanged herself at school and you found her with her legs all stiff?
In a million guesses, you would not guess.
Yeah, truly. Truly would not guess. That was also dark. Was that a reference to her? Was that something that happened to her? That felt really specific, and it feels like that's something that happened to her. Am I crazy?
Let's talk about that.
Or is it your year 3 teacher
$500
at
tip.
school and you found her
Damn.
with her legs all stiff?
In a million guesses, you would not
that
guess.
felt really specific, and that felt like something that happened to her. She got murdered?
Sorry.
Read the book? She's gonna read the book? Oh no. This is, Louis, this is such a terrible idea. This is bad. Yeah, he left her a $500 tip.
Church bells over their wine-drunk carts echoing off the walls.
Molti anni fa, hai il suo viso.
Un tuo amore?
Oh, wait.
No, vecchi, sulla mia
Oh.
stazione.
Oh, he recognized her then.
Lo davano tutti per uno scorcio di sei capelli biondi.
Dove lei ora?
Con Dio?
That freaking him out.
Camminando per I poveri campi della Francia.
Oop. See, now he's gonna go home and talk about witches. Okay, I want to say something. I haven't talked about it up till now in this. Crazy to think that in all the hours that I've been spending on this show that I have not talked about this yet. Oh my God, we're approaching hour 1 and we're only 20 minutes in. Good Lord. I'm very wordy. I'm sorry, you guys. Anyway, I haven't talked about this now, but we need to talk about the fact that everybody speaks English except for when she speaks Italian. Even though theoretically they should be speaking like French. Which is very much a departure from season 2, where they spoke French when it made sense to speak French, and then English when it made sense to speak English. And they gave us a reason for it. And obviously in this, I feel like they're trying to say, oh, he's translating it to English just to make it more, accessible for whoever's listening to the Failures record tapes or whoever's watching the documentary when he's doing flashbacks for the documentary. Although this scene is not for the documentary. Ooh, that's also something we should keep track of. Which flashback scenes are for the documentary and which ones are for the Failures album tapes or Failures albums. But it's interesting that they have her speak Italian regardless. Like, she's not speaking in English and saying, now she's speaking in Italian or something like that. It's doing a couple of things for me. It's a little interesting because it does a little bit feel like we are the scenes in season 2 felt a little bit more real. I know that there has been talk all up and down about whether or not the French in those scenes were good, et cetera, and whose accent was better and whose French was better, yada, yada, yada. I don't care about that. I'm just talking about the fact that they were talking in French made those scenes feel more authentically like these are actual flashbacks that happen. Whereas in this season, the fact that they are in English made makes the scenes feel more like they're stage play and not real. Even though theoretically we should be getting scenes here that counter the scenes in season 2 and season 1, I guess, and are telling Lestat's truth, but they are veiled through this barrier of they're not actually in French when they should be in French, and they're being translated, which means that who knows what they're actually saying, like they could be saying something that doesn't translate to English as easily, or like something like that. Or it's interesting, this idea of him translating it, then telling his story to Dan for the documentary, then telling his story to Dan for not the documentary, then telling his story to the Failures album that is meant to be sold at auction to a highest bidder who may or may not be intentionally set up to be Louis. It's interesting the way that the story is being translated, but Gabby is still talking in Italian. And there's a barrier there, right? Like, we know that Lestat understands Italian, and we've seen him speak Italian in season 1 and everything like that, which again is another interesting thing, because it's like, yeah, he could speak Italian, but Louis can't. So how did Louis know what he was saying in Italian in season 1? Or was that affectation after the fact again? But anyway, but there's a barrier here, right? Where now the French scenes and the French moments are more aligned with the audience in English, and Gabby's Italian is othered and separated out as strange or separate from Lestat, who speaks primarily in English in all the flashbacks, and us, the audience. But then again, we also had episode 2 where Lestat sings in French to Gabby, and that separates, but that's another separation between him and Gabby, where they're using language as a way to align certain things to the audience and separate certain things from the audience and from Lestat within the narrative. I don't know. I just felt like saying it here because she just started talking in Italian, and I thought that was super interesting. So presumably, prior to this, they were just talking in French, not in English, to each other. Anyway, let's keep going.
Not a vecchia anymore. Not a marquisa. Not a wife. Not a mother. Not a woman.
What then?
I'm a fever that comes in the night and kills by the morning.
Interesting. That was the most authentic Gabby we've ever gotten so far. Like, I do feel like that Gabby has felt more aligned with her character a little bit more in the flashbacks, but this whole conversation felt very Gabby to me. Even the one in the chariot earlier felt very Gabby to me, finally, which I like. This is the most in character that she's been since the beginning. I want them to stay on this track, which obviously means that they are intentionally making her out of her character in previous episodes for whatever reason. I'm sure we'll find out. But I still don't know if I like the choice of that. Does that make sense? I understand what they are doing, and I understand the intentionality of it, but I don't know if I like that creative choice. Does that make sense? There's a difference between me not understanding what they're doing. I mean, I understand, I know I say, oh, what are they doing with Gabby? I know what they're doing with Gabby. I just don't know if I like what they're doing with Gabby, okay? But this has felt the most like Gabby since the beginning. So this is already the best Gabby scene. The scene that was pulled straight from the books in episode 2 also felt very authentically Gabby, which is the post-wolf killer, weirdo sexual fantasy scene. That was pulled straight from the books. So that also felt like authentic Gabby. And you will notice, if you rewatch those scenes, the whole theatricality of the dinner table falls away in that scene where it's just him and Gabby, and they're talking about the wolves and, you know, what they want to do in terms of their liberation from their current status quo. That also felt less theatrical than the dinner scenes, and therefore felt more real and more grounded. This scene also felt really grounded.
Christ is thirsty.
I like it.
So, was he clutching Jesus while you sucked him off?
Okay, so he is telling this story
I
today.
believe we left Plaster saved here in the corner facing the wall. It was Holy Saturday after all.
Great. I think we
Again, let's keep track of that.
Sexual fluidity.
Dan still missing the psychodrama of Dubai. Do you want me to play dumb like your maker and pretend you're 2 steps ahead of me?
So what, this guy's like your sponsor?
Not really using that word, you know? He's like a god.
Sorry, what? Hold on.
Gods and record deals.
Keep going.
I don't think mine can float. All that shit I was carrying was putting onto other people, onto you. This guy erased it all, brother.
Oh my god. Sorry. Armand is Alex's sponsor, but actually he's his god. Oh my god. What did What did Armand do to this boy, y'all? Can you imagine Armand as your AA sponsor? That's insane. That's crazy. That's so crazy. Brother? Boy? What did he do to this boy? Sorry, did he just say he erased it?
Deals popping up like crazy.
Not him accidentally becoming a cult leader again.
All that shit I was carrying.
Oh no.
Putting onto other people, onto
Or
you.
maybe not accidentally, maybe it's intentionally.
This guy erased it all, brother.
Sir?
So what's his god's name? That I gotta keep.
Oh, brother, you're in a cult. Sir, you're in a cult. Oh my god, is Armand building a new cult? Is that what's happening? Or is this like incidental? Did he he's like, I'm here, I'm in this AA meeting, I'm gonna be really involved in this community, which, that makes sense because Armand is always searching for a community. He just builds it terribly. He builds community terribly, and then it goes bad. And it's part of his journey. I'll talk about it later, actually, in the discussion, I think. But anyway, this is funny as hell. Armand, what are you doing? What are you doing to this boy? Did he just say he took that out of his mind? Did he try to use the mind gift to erase this boy's addiction?
This guy erased it all, brother.
Oh my god. Armand is using the mind gift to lobotomize this boy. This is funny as hell. No! Why is Armand like this? Why is Armand like this, y'all? What is the reason? What is the end game here, Armand? What are we doing?
So what's his god's name?
This is crazy. Oh, I can't tell you his name. Oh, that's an agenda, though. That feels like an agenda.
The thought never crossed your mind, Dan? Love? Armand could not read your mind because he was sitting 2 feet from Louis.
Yeah.
You were 5,000 feet from Louis after you dropped him. That was love, right?
Gagged him.
Tell me, Andrew, why does
Absolutely gagged.
Okay, cool. No bullshit. I didn't know you were alive 3 days ago.
Healing somewhat Sophia and deliberate.
I have heard enough of Gabby's moaning to last me a lifetime. I'm good. I never want to see her having sex ever again unless she's strapping Severine or Jesse, okay? I don't want to hear another moan out of her for the rest of this fucking series, okay? Until we get to the end of this entire saga, unless she's strapping Jesse or strapping Severine, okay? I don't ever want to see her with another man ever again, okay? Listen. I don't ever want to see it. I need her to quit. I need them to quit it.
The walls.
And?
So she does this all the time. So she does this thing where she has crazy loud sex near him in order to piss him off or make him jealous, or so this is a long running thing that she does.
Carried you out of your room, through the courtyard, and into my room.
Can we not? I mean, I know we have to in order to get into Lestat's psyche, but good lord.
I killed the wolves. And you tended my wounds. We were mother and son.
And?
Debatable? That was debatable because that was a very questionable scene. Also, I'm pretty sure that was the moment that Gabriella stopped actually viewing him as her son and started, like, I mean, obviously she had been blurring the boundaries with him before that, but I think that was the moment where it switched in her mind to, I am going to be sexually involved with him in a way that's like a husband, right? That's when it was very clear on the acting on her face that was the moment that she considered him to be worthy of being her, you know, both her, shall we call him, I don't want to say replacement, but, you know, she lives her life vicariously through him, and him killing the wolves was the moment that Gabby saw him as a man. Like, she was yelling at the table, be men, you know, and he went out and took the challenge and killed all the wolves and came back alive. And that was something that she felt like she could do and she wanted to do. So him doing that is her living vicariously through him in that moment. And that was the moment when she felt like, yes, he's finally a man. And not my son, but now a man. And then she starts engaging with him sexually in that moment. So for him, that was the first moment that he felt like she was his mother because she was tending to his wounds. But that moment was the first moment that she felt like he was her husband or her sexual partner. And so they just had two completely different reactions to the wolf killing and the wound healing scene. That's terrible.
I love you.
Oh no. I'm pretty sure that's probably the first time she's ever said I love you to him. And it was in the context of we're not mother and son anymore. Oh, that's terrible. That's awful. This is genuinely awful.
I love you.
This is the first time that they actually have sex, I assume. And cross that boundary. But only saying I love you in the context of your, before we get into this next scene. Only saying I love you in the context of we're not mother and son anymore. We're lovers. And that's the first time that your mom ever says I love you to you. That's so fucked up. That's so fucked up. Oh my god. Ugh. Ugh.
Still the early riser.
Armand.
You're
Not the
listening
record
to
scratch.
Failure, album 40, side
Album
B.
40. Okay, so 6 albums after the last one.
How did you get in here? So it could peel off and suffocate you in the dark. What are you doing here, Armand? He would do more damage than the Queen ever did.
I have been enduring intense conversation with myself.
Oh god, before we get into his 12 steps with him. He really is doing the 12 steps and trying to make amends. This is so funny. This genuinely is the funniest way they could have taken Armand's character in this episode. Okay, before we get into that. Interesting. What the hell did he mean by he would do more damage than the Queen? Than Akasha? In what way? We're doing a lot of portents and a lot of I don't want to say not foretelling, but we're doing a lot of portents of doom and stuff like that with the Queen and the apocalypse and everything like that. What does he mean by that? I'm like trying to think of what Armand does during the Queen of the Damned era, other than, his cute rom-com romance with Daniel. And, obviously he shows up at the end during the big, confab at Maharet's. But obviously they're rewriting all of that. They're doing, like I said in the previous episode, they're going to obviously do a big to-do with the Queen rising and this apocalypse. Like, they're not just going to do, she burns a few vampires and then she makes it to Maharet's and then she, tries to get other people to join her and Lestat, she tries to make Lestat her dark king, whatever, to take over the world when she's taking over the world. And she, they're not doing the very kind of more straightforward story of she burns a few vamps, she terrorizes Lestat, she makes him drink her blood, and then she makes it to Maharet's and he convinces her to offer the same deal to follow her to everybody else, and she does to please him, and then it goes sideways and then she gets killed. Like, that's basically what happens. Like, Makade, I think, shows up, jumps her, they all jump her, and Makade either cuts her head off or whatever, her head gets cut off, and then Makade eats her brains and heart, right, and becomes the new Queen of the Damned. Sorry, if you're watching this and you're about to get, I don't know if they're going to, but see, I don't think that they are going to go exactly that route with the show. I think maybe the bare bones of that are going to happen, but I wonder if they are switching around certain things. So what are they going to do to have Armand have a bigger role such that he says he would do more damage than the Queen? Are we talking about like actual physical damage to the world, or are we saying he's going to do more emotional damage to Lestat? I can see him doing emotional damage to Lestat, but more than Akasha did a number on Lestat in terms of fucking up his psyche and his feelings of autonomy. And that literally is what caused him to go into his spiral in Tale of the Body Thief. Is everything that happened with Akasha. So what could Armand do that's worse than everything that Akasha does to Lestat? Especially because this is the era where they are healing their relationship. Like, Lestat and Armand are starting to heal their relationship during the Queen of the Damned and post Queen of the Damned era. So what could Armand possibly do? Do more damage than the Queen? I don't even know what that means. Huh.
The nomad Armand. What are you doing here, Armand?
Faded wallpaper.
He would do more damage than the Queen ever did.
I have been enduring intense conversation with myself.
I'm using the script, but that's part of the 12-step program. So
from the deepest regions of my soul.
You have no soul.
Can I just read it?
They're so fun together.
When I first encountered you in Paris, your dynamic personality overwhelmed me.
Naturally. Ever as bait to draw me and my mother into your underground death orgy.
Yes.
Yeah, you definitely did that.
Siri, shower playlist.
When you helped me rebuild the Paris Coven with your visionary conceit of a vampire theater whilst sharing your body and blood.
Sorry. Not him getting flashbacks. What? That was funny. That was such a funny acting choice. I love it.
Yes.
I'm going to shower. Continue. Siri, shower playlist.
When you helped me rebuild the Paris Coven with your visionary conceit of a vampire theater whilst sharing your body and blood.
Oh, that was
I
elite.
artlessly
That was an
assumed
elite acting choice.
companionship, which was, upon reflection, wish-fulfilling delusion, rooted in childhood conflict.
Oh no. Oh no, not him being horned up.
Your
Oh
exit
no.
from Paris and beyond generous endowment you left us with was
Generous endowment is crazy. Not flattering him. What?
graceful and sensitive, and I shamefully blamed your mother. When I had the opportunity to speak truth to Louis concerning my...
Oh my god, he's just laser focused on his dick. That's so funny. Like, he's looked at his dick like 4 times in the last 10 seconds. This is funny as hell. Why do you have a blood shower? What? Why? I mean, very Blade of you, but still, why? What does a blood shower do for you? Exactly. I guess it's very kitschy, you know. He's doing a documentary following a vampire, so he's got to do kind of a cliche vampire thing, like have a blood shower. But like, what is this actually doing to your bus? Do you have a tank of blood above that people could just be drinking? Like, what are we doing? Does it clot? Do we have to refill it for no reason? Why do we have a blood shower? I feel like the joke of that is, for a documentary, is a bit like the cleanup's got to be crazy, right? Interesting. No, I want to see some of these acting choices again because these were funny as hell. Asad Zaman, so good. Because he is horned up.
Rooted in childhood conflict.
Rooted in childhood conflict? I bet.
Your
Oh my
exit from
god.
Paris and beyond generous endowment you left us with was...
This is, okay, this is
and
Lestat
sensitive.
writing this. We gotta remember. This is Lestat recounting this.
Graceful and sensitive, and I shamefully blamed your mother.
Not saying that,
When I had
you
the
know,
opportunity
Armand
to
doesn't
speak
want,
truth to Louis concerning
isn't
my
horned up for Lestat. Obviously he
involvement
is.
in the matinee production of
Not
Trial.
a production, an actual trial
right,
with
sir?
definitive sentences of death.
Matinee production is crazy, Armand.
Your silence in the ruined tower of your former maker. I walked the rest of the century on
He's
a
just
carpet of
rubbing
eggshells,
blood
knowing at
over
any
his
moment
body.
you could reach out to Louis and make him the wiser.
I knew it would eat you alive and tangentially make Louis miserable. And that is how I chose to spend the latter half of the 20th century.
That's awful. I mean, I guess he could be lying to Armand just to piss him off. But you did kind of just let them walk out of there without saying anything, sir. Like, what the hell was that? That's still kind of on you. Regardless of why you did it, it's messed up that you did it. You let Louis walk out of there with the man who murdered y'all's daughter. That's fucked up. That's truly fucked up. No matter what his reasoning was for this, it's still bad, right? Like, if he's telling the truth to Armand and he was just petty and mad because Louis went in there and tried to kill him or whatever, or was talking about killing him and did the whole like, here's your death, Lestat, and he was just being petty about that, that's awful. That's truly awful, which, you know, hey, Lestat's fucking awful, just like everybody else in the show, so fair enough. But like, that's next level awful if you did that to Louis. But even if you're telling the truth, that's awful. If you're lying and you were like, ooh, what did he say in season 2? I knew you'd figure it out or something like that. That's also awful, by the way. Like, I let you go off with him, but I knew you'd figure it out eventually. That's crazy. I'm so sorry. Like, you could have said, no, he killed him and I didn't. Or he held me hostage. I wasn't there willingly or something. Like he orchestrated this whole thing. Why are you going off with him? Literally could have said it. Regardless of what Armand did in that movie, maybe Armand would snap and try to kill you both. But it's crazy that you just let him walk out of there with Armand with absolutely no attempt to tell him the truth at all. That's crazy.
I'm having a good time now. Because you are a fuck cloud, Armand. It's your nature.
What is a
be
fuck
who you
cloud?
are, but be it on the other side of the moon. Or kill yourself. Siri, pause.
Siri, pause again. Also, a reference to that scene where he was like, oh, you know, I gave you to Armand or whatever the hell, which is crazy because he said that actually. Now that I'm saying it, you said that. So you did actually just intentionally give him to Armand. What? Which is a crazy statement to say. We don't talk enough about how crazy that statement was to say for Lestat, this white man, to say he gave his black boyfriend / ex-husband, whatever we want to call them, to another man. Like he's, I don't know, a toy, a commodity. That was an insane line. And we don't talk about it enough, by the way. Especially because we spent the whole first season talking about how he low-key kind of treated him and Claudia like commodities, like things to own, like playthings. And like Claudia was like, yo, who are you, our master? Like, remember she was calling him master and shit like that in season 1? That wasn't just like to annoy him. It was also how he made her feel, right? Like that was how he made her feel. Which makes sense because they were 2 black people in Jim Crow South, right? Like, so to then go into season 2 and have him say, oh, gave you to Armand was crazy. That was a crazy sentence. So now, actually, I'm more inclined to believe that he's telling Armand the truth here. That he actually did let this man go off with Armand intentionally, knowing that that shit was fucking awful. That's terrible. Oh my God.
I leave the pages here.
Fine. I'm quite sexy.
Interesting. I like that. Oh, this is a good scene. This is a really good scene. A lot of sexy sexual tension happening here. That was funny as hell too. A lot of really strong acting choices in this scene. I saw that one that Assad did at the end there. That was really interesting. But I want to talk about this because that's super interesting. So this is like, so this is a hinting at maybe what Armand is doing, his agenda here.
You want me to stop playing music?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The vampires are listening to my songs. They believe that they can live as I do. They're making too many. The mortals won't allow it. The planet can't support it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the mortals want to, so he's absolutely concerned with, that makes sense to me, that Armand is actually super focused on, hey, we've got vampires out there making fledglings willy-nilly, like crazy, where like that was the whole point of the coven system, was to regulate vampires, right? Regardless of how we feel about the cult, the purpose of it at its inception was to regulate vampires, to set laws in place that prevent them from exposing vampire kind and also prevent them from making vampires willy-nilly, right? Like there was a reason that the coven system was put into place. It's like many systems, it quickly was corrupted. And of course, if you're familiar with the books, you know that it started off as this like really religious cult kind of thing that quickly spiraled into kind of fundamentalism, right? And very easily was corrupted, obviously. But the base purpose of the laws, were to regulate and control vampire creation and human vampire relations, right? And I guess vampire relations too. Like, that's the purpose of the coven system. And theoretically, if it had not been born of regimented, fundamentalist kind of religious evil, theoretically, it could have been something that was more of a haven or more of a positive force for vampire kind. But of course, it can't be divorced from its origins as a cult completely. So it's hard to, it's messy. It's very messy, but it can't, like I said, it can't be divorced from its cult religious fundamentalism kind of roots. So can you really truly get anything good out of that? Or do you have to completely destroy it? Which is what happened to Armand when Lestat came in and destroyed the cult. But unfortunately, the fragments were still there, and Armand's indoctrination, as much as I like to kind of call Lestat Armand's deprogrammer, because that's basically what he did in France in the 1700s, is that Armand was indoctrinated and brainwashed in a cult, and Lestat was his deprogrammer to a certain extent. And obviously, it was very unwilling. He got kidnapped. It wasn't something that it's not like he came there like a real deprogrammer, like, I'm going to help you deprogram from your, brainwashing. It was just kind of like an accidental byproduct of Lestat denying and rejecting the cult ideology. Is that he brought Armand along with him and helped to start Armand's deprogramming that then, would continue throughout the centuries. Obviously, he's not a professional deprogrammer. It's just a joke. But it does hold the idea of, like, meeting Armand and Armand meeting Lestat helped Armand to start breaking out of his indoctrination and let go of some of the ideology that he had, but he doesn't get rid of all of it. And here we have it coming back up. So he's regressing a little bit back to his cult beginnings, because that's probably familiar to him. He just lost everything after his divorce with Louis, and Louis, he had replaced the cult with the Théâtre des Vampires, and then he replaced the Théâtre des Vampires with his devotion and his marriage to Louis, right? And he kind of slotted Louis into that place. And now he's lost that. And so he has reverted back to the familiar, which is, hey, if I don't know anything, I know the great laws. And I actually do have legitimate concerns about the fact that vampires are running around making more and more vampires, and there's this great conversion shit, and it's chaos in the streets. So he's reverting back to that, where he's like, no, this is not good for the planet, not for vampires, not for humans, not for any of us. But it's diametrically opposed to Lestat's POV, which is Lestat's POV is, live as you will. Like, remember in the beginning of episode 1, he says, it was the spring of 2025, and every vampire, what did he say? Every vampire converting and enduring, they were doing exactly as they pleased. That's right. That's what he said. They were doing exactly as they pleased. And that's his MO. That's his ideology, is that we are all surviving the Savage Garden, but at the end of the day, do what you will. Even here in this scene, he said to Armand, like, this is who you are. Be who you are. Do what you want. Be who you want, And it's very opposite of how Armand thinks. Like, it's really, I like the scene a lot, actually. This scene is really good. I really like the scene because it's doing a really good job of setting up their ideological difference here in the present day. Although I still wish we had gotten some of their ideological differences in the past explored and the beginnings of this diversion in their thinking that pretty much fuels the philosophical through line of the entire Vampire Chronicles is, you know, Armand on this side and Lestat on this side, and their conversations with each other and their alliances with each other, and then their conflicts with each other are help to shape both of their characters and helps to edify both of their characters in a number of ways. They grow because they are in opposition to each other, but their opposition doesn't prevent them from still being a little bit aligned with each other. It's really interesting and rich dynamic, in my opinion. And because of it, they are able to grow and change each other quite beautifully throughout the books, as far as I've read up to. Yeah, anyway, let's keep going. So he's concerned about the swelling of numbers that they've had recently as part of the Great Conversion.
I'm quite sexy.
I really love that acting moment from Assad. Is he thinking, you are kind of sexy, actually? Or is he thinking, you don't know anything about my plan, haha. It's hard to, he's very enigmatic, so I don't know which one he's thinking. Oh, here we go back here. Oh, goodness. Oh, did she read the book?
You missed a couple shifts. I was worried.
You're the one in the book.
So she did read the book. That's such a mess. Louis, this is a bad idea, sir.
I can help you. I can explain.
Yeah, Claudia. I look like her.
Yeah.
That's mental.
It's also mental that you believe this. Sorry. Are you saying that you read these books and you fully believe that he is a vampire? He's the vampire from these books? Have you had a vampiric encounter before this? A supernatural encounter? Oh, maybe she's had a supernatural encounter. I didn't think about that. That she did mention some kind of traumatic event that might have been, but that felt like a normal thing. Like, I don't want to say normal thing. That's not a normal thing that she possibly walked in on one of her teachers' suicide. But maybe she's saying that, but actually she meant something more supernatural? Huh. I didn't think about that until just now.
I know.
This is a lot.
Like maybe she's predisposed to believe in vampires.
I gotta switch to breakfast.
I can't stay anyway.
Because it's coming all morning.
Mm-hmm.
Why does she believe him?
I've been here since 1:30.
Get out!
That's psychotic. I agree.
What's this then?
You can have a different life.
I know that I can. I don't need you for that.
I looked you up online.
You fool stalking.
Found your OnlyFans.
Yeah. What? He is full stalking. What? Louis, this is unhinged, Louis.
Criminal record, credit card scams, bouncing around Europe, a stolen car in Amsterdam. I can help you.
Fuck
I
off.
can clean that for you.
That's so weird, Louis. This is bad. This is all bad.
I can pay off your debts and get you an apartment.
But put on a yellow dress and sit in your lap.
No, none of
Yeah,
that.
all of that. Here's the money. Get in my Escalade. Be my dead daughter.
Oh, that's so fucked up. Oh no!
I've got enough shit in my life. I do not need more.
Are there any readers in the...
Yeah, before we get into this, that's so... Oh no, Louis, that's so... No, Regina, valid girl, because that's wild. That was such a wild conversation. Oh my God. Let's keep going.
Audience to me.
That was an
Have
insane
you come
conversation,
across
y'all.
this 2023 bodice ripper? Dubbed in follow my finger to the French Bengali smoke show. Can we get a torch? The maître of Paris. Look deep into his ooh Japanime eyes as he mind cocks you off a cliff.
Ooh, Japanime. Lestat, you can't say that. That was racially charged. That was so racially charged. You can't say that, sir. You can't say that. That was a crazy thing to say, sir. Like, you are not allowed to say that, sir. That was wild.
Finger to the French Bengali smoke
this is interesting
show.
though. Sorry, did he call him French Bengali? Like, I know that Asad Zaman his family is from Bangladesh, and so he's Bengali, right? Which is not always. I'm not going to get into it, but I know that he is Bengali. So are they making Armand Bengali? Also, how does Lestat know that? Oh, that's super interesting. I have questions. I'll save it for later, I think. I'll save it for later.
Can we get a torch? The maître of Paris.
Oh, that's super. That's such a crazy lore drop.
Eyes as he mind cocks you off a cliff. The shapeshifter, the sophistica, the vampire Armand.
I'm so annoyed.
Despite what you've been sold.
Yep, that's your sponsor.
We are friends, he and I. He did a brave thing for me once. And I have grown to respect Armand and his staunch defense of the 5 great laws.
If you're a boo-boo, then he doesn't want you. Oh, don't you dare write down his history. If you know him, then you won't know much more. Only the big boss gets to decide who dies and who stays alive.
That was kind of cute. Did he just ruffle his curls? That's cute. I mean, it's very mocking, obviously, but that was cute. Are each of these the laws? Sorry. You kind of deserve this, though. You terrorized everybody in your life, Armand. You a little bit deserve this. Not a little bit. You definitely deserve this, though. Oh, his eyes started shaking there. Did you see that? Oh. This guy followed him. Pause. Before we get into the next scene, there was a lot there. Wow, there was a lot that actually just happened there. Lot of lore. The lore drop of Armand being Bengali is actually kind of the biggest in my mind right now, because that's crazy. If Lestat knows that Armand is Bengali, how does he know that? How does he know that? Because Armand doesn't know anything about his past. His first memory was being chased down by slavers in Delhi, which is not Bengal. It's not the Bengal Sultanate. So his first memory was of being chased down by slavers in the Delhi Sultanate. We don't know exactly where in the Delhi Sultanate, but that's his first memory. And what Lestat is saying is that no, he's Bengali, which I guess he could be Bengali but living in the Delhi Sultanate. Or he could have been from the Bengal Sultanate and then trafficked to the Delhi Sultanate, which is why his first memory is being chased by slavers there. But, you know, there's been all this debate online since season 2 where we got Armand's story. Because I'm locked in. You know, when I'm into a show or a movie or whatever, a fandom, I'm deeply locked into a fandom. And this one is definitely one of them. So there's been a lot of debate online since season 2, where it aired, and Armand told his story that he was, his parents had sold him to a ship's captain in Delhi. And everybody was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense because Delhi is landlocked, right? Remember all that debate where it was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what, were the writers just, you know, asleep that day? But if he's Bengali and he's from the Bengal Sultanate is near water. Like, depending on where you are, it's a large area. It's a sultanate, so like it's a large area. But depending on where you are, it does have cities and areas that are on the water in a more tangible way. So it would make more sense for him to be from the Bengal Sultanate and then somehow got picked up by slavers. And of course, Armand's memory is mixed up of that time. So like, he can't definitively say anything about his childhood because he doesn't remember it. His memories of that time are fragmented. So it makes sense that he wouldn't remember that correctly. I don't fault Armand at all for not remembering the time when he was sex trafficked, you know, and his fragmented memory of that time, probably from dissociation during that time. Hopefully it's not anything more. I was going to say more sinister, because the only other option for why his memory is fragmented is if somebody went in there and fucked up his memory of his childhood. And the only person who would possibly do that would be Marius. But that would be something. That would be a wild place to take Marius's character. Not impossible, but like there's certainly a precedent. There's certainly a... it's not, like I said, it's not impossible to take Marius's intentions there, because there is an element of his character that was deeply, deeply jealous of Armand's relationship with his biological family, and specifically his biological father, because of course, even as Marius was molesting Armand, he also wanted to be considered his father during that time too. So he wanted to be everything to Armand. He wanted to be his god. He wanted to replace religion for him and become his god. He wanted to be his father. He wanted to be his mentor, his maker, his lover, all at the same time. And so one thing that Armand didn't do is that he didn't really position himself as Marius's son from his POV, even though Marius was constantly constantly calling Armand his son, even as he was molesting. I say Armand, but it's obviously Amadeo. But like, he was constantly, you know, trying to position Armand as his son, while also molesting him, while also grooming him to become his perfect vampiric consort and companion, able to shape him in a way that he wasn't able to shape Pandora, whose father refused him when he wanted to marry her at 10 years old, and grew up into womanhood. And even though she was still in love with him, he resented the fact that she was more independent from him than he wanted, which is the conflict of a lot of the conflict between Marius and Pandora is that she's actually very independent and speaks her mind, and he's not comfortable with a lot of that. With a lot of his lovers are like that. Like they're actually quite defiant, including Armand actually. And he gets really upset when they don't allow him to be really paternalistic with them. And so a lot of his broken relationships, Marius's broken relationships, have to do with him trying to act like a benevolent father and benevolent, wise husband, whatever, to his lovers. And then them going, no. Even as they're simping for him for some god-awful reason, they still like maintain a kernel of independence that he resents in a lot of ways. At least that's how I've read him. That's how he's felt to me. And it's certainly that way with Armand. And so when Armand goes back home, Marius takes him home in the book, after he became a vampire, of course, and he was locked to him for eternity, of course. After that, he takes him home, finally, actually takes him home to his parents, and Armand gets to meet his family again, but now he's a vampire, so he can't stay with them. But Marius gets insanely jealous of Armand's clearly loving, close relationship with his father. And so I could see the show translating some of that jealousy into the show, as he was so jealous of the idea of Armand going back home that he kept his home from him. That would be so fucked, though. That would be fucked. But it would be a natural extension of Marius's jealousy. And he does occasionally say stuff like, ooh, I thought I'd, cleaned out those, habits and stuff like that about Armand. And like, because he put together a program in a diary on how he was going to groom Armand. Like, he sat down and wrote out a lesson plan on how he was going to groom Armand and make him the perfect vampiric, consort and companion that could be with him throughout eternity and wouldn't be like, his relationship with Pandora, wouldn't be like, his almost relationship with Bianca before he found out she was a killer, and I could see them translating that, because the show has been doing a number of things to make certain characters worse in their TV counterpart, especially in their behaviors. They've done a number of things for a good majority of the characters, actually. They've made their actions worse in the show than they were really in the book. Armand, Lestat are two primary ones that they've made their actions worse in the show than they were in the book. In some ways. In other ways, they've moved some things around so that certain responsibilities aren't on. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but I could see them making that adaptation with Marius. But speaking of Lestat, the interesting part of that is that Lestat knows this. So how does he know this? There's only two ways. Either Armand doesn't remember his history, but remembers that he's Bengali and told Lestat in, a moment of intimacy, I guess, in the 1700s. Or he learned that from Marius after he starts searching for Marius and finds him and starts studying with Marius. And Marius knew that Armand was Bengali and told Lestat but didn't tell Armand. That would be awful. That would be so awful, actually. Devastating. I hope that's not it. That would be beyond the pale. We're already going to get Armand getting devastated by finding out that his maker is actually still alive. But to have him betray Armand in this way would be so awful. Maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe it's Armand actually does remember that he's, at the very least, he remembers that he's Bengali, even if he doesn't remember exact scenes of his childhood. He remembers that he's Bengali. Maybe that's it. I'm just going to hold out hope for that. That song was not very good. But we knew that from the beginning of the episode, because when Salamander was singing that or putting that song together, it was trash. The song itself was not very good, which coming off of last episode with the loneliness, which was the best song so far in the show. This is a bit. So it's terrible that his diss track was not very good. But there were a few interesting lines that I actually do want to look at. We're like 2 episodes in, or 2 hours in, so some of these lines were questionable. So, this was a crazy fucking line. Because I was just talking about how Armand was sex trafficked as a child. This is the second comment that we've had in this episode that's specifically about how Armand was raped as a child. What are we doing? In the season that's examining sexual assault, what are we doing? It's weird. It's weird. First was with Gabby when she called him a tart that Uncle Marius got bored of. Like, ugh. And then now here, what are we saying? Ugh. I know we need to roast Armand and everything like that, and I'm fine with that. But why is everybody else being subjected to jokes about child sexual assault right now? Why am I being subjected to that? Why do I have to endure the flippant way that Gabby and Lestat are talking about child sexual assault, especially in sex trafficking? Why do I have to endure this? Weird.
I know that life is cool, but you should get your face did. You got a lot of rules.
Oh, I was gonna look up the pause. Okay, so I'm looking up the great laws right now. So first one, Coven must have its leader, and only he can do the dark trick on a mortal. So that makes sense. Only the big boss gets to have fun.
Gets to have fun. If you're a boo-boo, then he doesn't want you.
If you're a boo-boo, then he doesn't want you. The second law is the dark gifts must never be given to the crippled, the maimed, or to children. So, okay, so if you're a boo-boo, then he doesn't want you. So you're not allowed to become immortal. Okay.
Oh, don't you dare write down his history.
Yeah, don't write down the history. Yeah, we can't. No vampire shall ever write the history of the vampires.
If you know him, then you won't know much more.
Did they change the order from the Vampire Chronicles? Because the order is swapped here. 5 is 4 in his song, and I think it's actually 4 in the show too. And then 5 is the Coven leader is allowed to destroy, is obligated to destroy anybody who breaks the laws, and he's the one who decides who is allowed to destroy other vampires. Okay, I think they swapped them. In the books, 4 and 5 are swapped. So in the show, they swapped them, which makes sense because the final law being that the Coven leader has, power over life and death of every vampire, and it's his obligation to enforce all of these laws that we've just said. It makes sense to make that law 5, not law 4. So that's good. That makes sense to me. Okay, sorry. So he is saying all the laws. Okay. That's an interesting line. Oh yeah, his eyes were shaking on that one. So his kisses put me in a coma. Is he just mean that he's boring? Because he's been all throughout the song, like, oh, he's boring. He's a total blah blah and all that. Or is he saying something more sinister there? Like, Armand, did you kiss this man while he was asleep, sir? Don't kiss people while they're asleep, okay? Is that what happened? Or is he saying that he might... Because that's a thing from the books, is that Armand, when Lestat was going to try and leave him and rejecting him, flips out and attacks him and uses his mind powers to make him feel like he's alive again, et cetera, et cetera. And then he bites him and starts to drain him. And then Lestat flips out because obviously because it was a violation of his mind and body, et cetera. But also because it freaked him out to feel alive again, and it made him really angry because this was a time period where he hated being a vampire. Lestat hated being a vampire and wanted to be human again and wanted his life back, etc. So to have Armand make him feel human again and it was all a lie made him lose it, absolutely lose it, and he beats the shit out of Armand after that. And then that's when they form the Théâtre de Vampire. But now I'm wondering if the show is actually going to flip the order of it so that we get exactly as Armand and Lestat have been saying, that, he was in the coven. They basically destroyed the coven, but created the Théâtre Vampire. And then after that, we have the big altercation between Armand and Lestat, where Armand violates his trust and violates his body and tries to drain him and starts their schism that ultimately caused the biggest rift in their relationship up to Claudia. And then it cascades into everything that happens with Claudia. And then they have the second big rift between them. And then from there, they have to healing their relationship after that. Was actually very difficult, and it's not really fully healed. It's just a new relationship that they have to build after that, right? Because that was such an irrevocably damaging series of events that Armand perpetuated against Lestat, that it ruined their relationship for a long time, and it took a long time for them to start to heal their relationship, at least somewhat. And it's never going to be what it was before Armand ruined things, right? It's never going to be what it could have been. And they just both have to live with the fact that there's this huge thing between them that prevents them from being everything that they could have been to each other, and that kind of tension also drives their philosophical and ideological debates too. Anyway, so maybe we're still going to get that, but maybe later. Maybe they've just repositioned it. Maybe we'll get it at the end of the season. Because it feels a little bit like the series is going to culminate to that, to that moment where Lestat and Armand have the big fight and the big schism, and Armand does this horrifying thing to Lestat, this horrible thing to Lestat, and breaks their relationship from then going forward, right? But also, his eye wiggles there. But the thing that pissed him off most was the whole concept of not being good in bed. Actually, no, that wasn't it. It was this part. Yeah, that pissed him off. That's crazy. Was it good? Oh no! That feels like a real thing. That felt like a real thing that probably Armand said to him while they were, cavorting around Paris, but probably the first time, because Armand would have been coming off of a 250 year forced celibacy in the cult. He would have been coming off of 250 years of absolutely not just no sex, but no intimacy, no romance, no touching, nothing. He was in a cult, and part of their cult was complete, utter abstinence and denial of any pleasures of the flesh, of the mind, of the spirit, right? He would have been starved for affection, which is what fuels a lot of his mania at the time with Lestat, is that, you know, he was so completely starved of any kind of contact with others that he really just lost it and absolutely transgressed against Lestat. But I can see, since they've changed it so that they had like a very dubious, but semi consensual relationship, affair during the Nikki years, I could see that first time Armand asking Lestat that, like, legitimately, because he hasn't had sex with anybody or been intimate with anybody in 250 years. Imagine Lestat being your first intimate partner after 250 years of torturous, violent, indoctrinated celibacy, which in itself, we don't talk enough about it, but Armand's forced celibacy is also sexual violence, sexualized violence, especially because it was accompanied with brainwashing and torture and cult ideology. Oof. I could see him asking that in bed after. Oh no, that's sad. That's terrible. And then, of course, that, again, his psyche there, he would have been manic. He would have been out of control. And unfortunately, Lestat is not to blame for that, you know? Like, first of all, Lestat was kidnapped into this, you know? Low-key. Like, you know, that's not Lestat's fault. Like, you kidnapped Nikki and brought him and his mom and all three of them into your cult and into your orbit. And then you were an absolute menace to all three of them, presumably. I don't know about how much you were a menace to Gabby, but you were at least a menace to Nikki and Lestat. Like, it's not his fault that you went through this horrific experience for 250 years. But unfortunately, it got laid down on Lestat because Armand couldn't regulate himself, you know, and lost it. Absolutely did irreparable harm. But now in the show, it's interesting. In the show, he's had a longer amount of time with Lestat, which means that he had more time to calm down. So if we do actually get the transgression, the assault, and everything like that, just like the books, but now later, after they had presumably at least a year, maybe at least a year of just regular interactions, then that means that him losing it is way more Armand's, like, way more under Armand's control than it was in the books. In the books, it was like, again, it was like a long weekend, and he loses it. He loses everything. Everybody, Alessandra threw herself into a fire in front of him. He fucking flips out. He starts killing the other members of the coven. Everything is chaos. And then he's getting rejected. And then he attacks Lestat in, like, this frenzied moment. And it's very explosive and emotional and intense. And, you know, Lestat, it's emotional for Lestat, obviously, because it reminds him of Magnus. And he flips out, beats the shit out. It's all really, like, an intense confluence of emotions. But if it happens now in the show, after you've had at least 6 months to a year of time with him to figure out a way to regulate your emotions, and then you still flip out on him when he tries to leave Paris and do the same thing, that's even worse for show Armand. Look, this is what I'm saying. If they do this, they're doing little things to make certain behaviors worse in the show than they were in the books, in some ways. And in other ways, they're shifting things. But, like, in some ways, they're making some actions way more reprehensible in the show. Like, the fact that Armand didn't just kill Claudia, he made her entire life in Paris really racialized and violent in a racial way, and he then culminates in him facilitating or whatever. I don't know how it all went down, but either way, he was part of the facilitation of her lynching. That's worse than what happened in the books. Sorry, because there weren't those levels of racialized violence involved with his relationship with and his there wasn't this level of anti-black, behavior involved in his relationship with Claudia in the books because they were both white. Yes, Armand is Eastern European, but still, there wasn't anti-black racism involved in the relationship between Armand and Claudia, right, in the books. But now it's racialized in the show, and it's worse. It just is. It's just worse for an audience. It's just worse for a modern-day audience that it was a lynching instead of just like a regular killing or execution or something. So, this is interesting because I thought this guy might have been like, I don't know, Calabasas, but he's clearly following Armand out. What the hell is going on there? Two hours and 20 minutes, y'all. Ooh, it's happening. Sorry. Go back. I just saw something. What did I just see? Okay, yeah. He just waved them away. Those two guys, the one guy was the guy that was just following him in the concert and followed him out, and he just waved them away across the street. I assume because he can feel Daniel behind him. What the hell is going on there?
Stop it! Stop it!
What?
You know what?
Everyone gone. You hear, but you can't see them.
Yes. Stop it!
I cannot. It happens to me too. It's happening right now.
Bullshit. Get out of my head.
I am your maker. I cannot get into your head any longer.
Right? This would be fucky.
What is this?
Our vampire bond, I think.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So.
Why are you here?
Okay, I'll let the scene play out.
You are courting great danger with Lestat.
Yeah. He's just an asshole.
There are nearly enough of us now. Each a body a night, each turning one a week.
Yeah, he's really concerned
More
about
deaths
this
than
shit.
births. The great conversion.
Yeah, the great conversion.
It's happening, Daniel. And he's going to lead it and get us all killed.
Was Dubai
Lead it?
bullshit?
What?
Me breaking you down. You knew everything the whole time, didn't you?
The stuff
It
that
was just
Lestat said
theater.
to him. Yeah, no, it's not that, baby.
No. I swear. It was love.
I'm a vamp now. Loving Louis doesn't shut it off.
Oh no, not Louis, baby. I mean, he
It
loves
wasn't
Louis,
my love
but
for Louis,
yeah.
Daniel. But it was love.
Yeah, but it wasn't about his love for Louis in that moment. It was about his love for other love. That was imagery. Two daddies and a lot of fun. What are we? Okay, I'll get into this next. Let's go back here. Ooh, a lot happened there. What the hell is going on? This is a really dense, a lot of dense scenes. So I don't know what the hell is going on with the guys that were following him. I don't know. I'll figure that out, I think, in the discussion. I'll figure out my thoughts about that in the discussion. We got a really nice Devil's Minion scene. We're really getting into the Devil's Minion storylines now. I can't wait to see people who don't know anything about Devil's Minion watch this, because this is going to be funny. That's going to be funny, because I can tell you right now, I obviously have been seeing all of the hints because I know about Devil's Minion. But I can't imagine if you don't know anything about Devil's Minion watching this. Oh my God. That's funny. Sorry, I just got a text. Hold on. I don't know if I'll cut that out, but you guys can deal with it. Yeah, I can imagine watching this and having absolutely no fucking idea about Devil's Minion, and then suddenly Armand is talking about, it was love. Not my love for Louis. Like, the way he says Louis is really cute. What is this accent he's doing? It's kind of French, but it's also kind of not. Doesn't it feel like not exactly his full... Like, we remember his French accent from season 2 when he was in Paris, and it's not as... Maybe it's just like... It's not as strong as his accent in Paris, right? Like, he's made it a little lighter because it's been 100 years since then. So that would make sense that he goes back to his French accent. He's been regressing this episode back to his coven leader role. It gives him purpose. It gives him structure. That makes sense because he completely lost his structure and his purpose after Louis divorced him. So he had devoted himself to being Louis' husband and completely made that his entire personality after he decided to devote himself after pulling Louis out of the wall. And so now without that structure, he has to find something else. So it makes sense that he's going back to what he knows. This was a really cute scene, but it's gonna baffle some people. I'm ready. Especially people who aren't locked into Armand's character and the Armand-Daniel relationship and have not been picking up on the little things that have been seeded throughout the first 2 seasons. I have noticed when I watch reactions, as you know, because I enjoy reactions. It's why I started my reaction channels, because I spent many years watching reactions. I've been watching reactions for close to 20 years now. Y'all don't know this, but the early days of reactions were mostly about K-pop. And I used to watch, I guess the beginning of reactions were 2 Girls, 1 Cup. But if you remember that, that was a thing. That was how reactions started, was people watching 2 Girls, 1 Cup. And then it evolved from there. And then it was like, it was the early days of YouTube and everything. And then it became, it was like 2 Girls, 1 Cup blew up. And then it was like all these videos of people reacting. Ooh, I showed my friend 2 Girls, 1 Cup, right? Like, we're not going to get into it. You can look it up. If you're underage, don't look it up. Only look it up if you're, an adult. Because it's very much an adult thing. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the beginning of reaction channels, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, it evolved into, like, TV watching. But K-pop watching for me, the early days is watching K-pop videos, et cetera, et cetera. So, but I watch a lot of reaction shows and reaction videos. And I have noticed that a lot of people aren't really locked in on Armand. I mean, because the show... A lot of times when you watch a show, you have these ideas of certain tropes. And so a lot of people place Armand in he's the villain of the show trope in position. Which is fine because he is the villain of these first, like, season 2 and season 3. Well, I don't know if season 3. He's just kind of a minor antagonist in this one. I'd say Gabby is more of the main antagonist in this season. He's more like a minor one. And he hasn't even really done anything really antagonistic up to now. Like, we're on episode 4, and I don't feel like Armand has done anything particularly antagonistic until this episode where he said, very point blank to Lestat, stop doing your music. That's about it. But all of his antagonism is still left over from the insanity of season 2, where he did some absolutely heinous shit. So I don't blame reactors for being like, Armand is the villain of the story. And it's like, because they haven't seen Armand be anything else. I have noticed that. But it's going to be really interesting to watch those people react to these scenes with him and Daniel as we start to shift Armand's character out of the main antagonist role and he's always a little villainous, You know, he never, I mean, they're all evil. They never really stop being evil. None of these characters ever really stop being evil. So he's always going to be evil and villainous in that way. But they, as he moves from antagonist to more on the protagonist side, he's kind of shifting his position. I don't think we're going to be there yet. I think he's still going to do some fuck shit this season, because we don't really shift his character until Queen of the Damned, right? So I feel like the majority of Queen of the Damned is going to be starting next season. So it's only going to be starting next season that he's going to fully shift out. But I feel like they have been seeding his slow shift for people who are observant of that in or even in season 2 a little bit, but certainly here. They haven't been really positioning him as a major antagonist yet. Although that's maybe a problem, because this is the book where he was one of the main antagonists, and he really should have been one of the more highlighted antagonists of this season. But, you know, that's again another complaint that we've talked about ad nauseum. I'm not going to talk about it again anymore. You know how I feel about it. There's something interesting here, though. He's going to lead it. Is he saying that Lestat is going to lead the vampire apocalypse? Which makes sense as a statement for what we know is Akasha's agenda once we get to Queen of the Damned. But why does Armand think that? Why does Armand think that he is going to lead the apocalypse? And obviously he's setting himself up in opposition to that. So he's still antagonistic in that sense, but not necessarily in the sense of he's doing something evil. I feel like he's setting himself up to be antagonistic to the agenda of taking over the world, the Great Conversion. I've said it before that I don't know what these guys are thinking about saying Armand told the truth and making him their spokesperson, but he is violently against turning people into vampires. That's like his one hardline rule, is that he is very much against that. So this Great Conversion shit is going to bother him. It makes complete sense that this bothers him, because he it's everything he is against as his own person, and also as a coven leader. It's completely against everything that he stands for as a coven leader, right? Everything that's happening with the Great Conversion and running wild and doing whatever, vampires doing whatever, that's completely against his ideology. So it makes sense that he would set himself up in opposition to that. But why does he think that Lestat is going to do it? Because presumably that only really happens when Akasha is here and is actually doing her thing with Lestat and kidnaps Lestat. And even then, Lestat isn't necessarily willing, you know? But I can see Armand thinking that he might be willing, because he's thinking that all of this is happening because Lestat is being his usual chaotic self. So, fair enough. This was a really sweet scene, and I feel like I'm talking so much about stuff that's not Devil's Minion. But actually, this is a really, fun scene. So let's watch it again.
You know what?
Everyone gone.
Yeah, so he's feeling the other side of this bond too.
Yes.
Which is new material, because the bond doesn't exist in the books. So this is all show
It's
stuff.
happening right now.
Bullshit. Get out of my head.
I am your maker. I cannot get into your head any longer.
Oh, the subtitles are gone again. Okay. Sorry, I had to go back a little bit because I had to refresh. So this Bond stuff is like completely brand new material. This is not something from the books. So what is happening there? What is happening here? This is all new stuff.
It happens to me too.
And I thought
right now.
it was a reference to just a regular Bond, but this is different. Yeah, this feels different actually than what Louis and Lestat have. So
our vampire bond.
Are they saying that certain bonds are just unique to the maker of Flageolet?
Yes, it is.
And everybody's going to have a very specific, unique feature of their bond? Interesting.
You are courting great danger with Lestat.
Also, important to always remember, Lestat is telling us this story right now.
Us now. Each a body a night, each turning one a week. No. No.
Oh man. That past DM is gonna hit like fucking crack in the 80s, buddy. Oh my god!
Now, loving Louis doesn't shut it off.
Oh, we're getting past DM, brother. We're getting past DM. I think it's gonna be next season though, when we get an actual Devil's Minion
But it was
episode.
love.
Oh. Oh, look at Daniel's face. That's so cute.
When she's not here and he's not... Did I beat Antoinette?
Dark. Sorry, what did he write?
She only gave you a finger.
Oh, Dark. Is that Marius's name? Interesting. Okay, why is Nicky using his bloody stump to write Marius's name on the mirror? What's happening?
Hello, Gabs, it's me.
Is that foreshadowing of who's next? Who's coming up next in terms of ghosts? Muses?
Moaning, sobbing, nipple hardening, prick popping.
Perry, Sean, and Kane took the midnight train.
Why do we keep disrespecting Yarda? I'm so sorry. Your mom, him sleeping with your mom without actually knowing that she's your mom, like that is not. Why are we abusing our workers, sir? Why are we abusing our workers, Lestat? You hired him to come here and pretend to be you. He has no fault in this. That's so disrespectful. I actually kind of hate that. Like, why are we treating Yarda like this? That's messed up. But, you know, I guess Lestat's evil, so can we keep our tongues in our mouths? Good lord. Oh, this is the fan from episode 1, right?
Hey, friend!
Oh, shit!
He can't die like this, he's a vampire! Wake up, people!
Oh my god, did Christine just die? Oh, okay, she's fine. I don't want to say she's fine, but she's not dying. That was insane. Oh, brother, that was kind of crazy. Doesn't that happen in the books, though? But in, at Renault's, right? Like, after he becomes a vampire, he freaks out some people on stage, and then one of them opens fire at him. But this was different. This was very, you know, modern day gun violence kind of bad. That was crazy. It felt, I don't want to, but it did kind of make me remember Christine Grimmie. That's what it made me think of when a fan shot and killed her. Just terrible. That's what it made me think of, personally. Dark. That's terrible. So for whatever reason, he decided to come up here and do an attack on Lestat to prove that he really was a vampire.
Fully rigged.
Oof.
I can almost see its cargo. It's an opium clipper.
An evil that answers goodness.
Shall we do it? Shall we scorch the mortal world?
Decimated. Brothers impaling brothers.
Are we using the word decimate correctly there? No. Or maybe she actually just means reduce it by 1/10. I guess. Maybe she's like, no, I think they're using the word wrong. Or she's using the word wrong. What is happening? That doesn't feel like something Gabby would care about. Okay, so they've killed the lighthouse keeper so that the boats crash on the shore. Okay.
mother.
And now she's like, we need to do evil that answers goodness? What? Is that something? Okay, mothers throttling their babes. She's very clearly talking about like apocalyptic shit.
Till no light remains, no hope of light, and we, the devils, rule.
Together, as dark monarchs, intertwined for all eternity.
Dinner.
That doesn't feel like something... What's happening there? Maybe I'm just not remembering stuff from the book, so that's possible. It's been, 15, 20 years, so. And I haven't reread any of these passages with Gabby in that way, so. Louis, I need you... This music is really good, by the way. Louis, I need you to... She's calling him in. But I still need you to figure out how to not do this. This is bad. You're gonna get this girl killed. And it's gonna be even more devastating.
Last time.
It was my fault.
Yeah, you're being fucking weird.
$1,000. That's a bus fare for you. What's not a bus fare?
100,000.
5 times that.
All right. I mean, get your bag, sis. But also, this is not a good idea. This is psychologically fucked. Oh, when we're talking about parental-daughter relationships and parental-child relationships, this is fucked.
What now, Daddy Lou?
Vampires do not live symbiotic.
No. Oh, Louis, this is bad. This is bad, Louis. No. That was so unnerving and weird. Oh, the Claudia voice, the way that the music faded out and it was just pure silence. And then she had the Claudia voice. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, no. This is going to be bad. This is going to end badly. Oh, no. This is psychological torture. For you, Louis. For her. For me. I mean, get your back, sis. But at the same time, that's bad. This is going to spiral. This is going to spiral beyond his fucking control, bro.
With humanity. They do not share in the daily struggle of human life. Instead, they feed, siphoning away our vitality in order to extend their own.
Is this his manifesto?
Existence.
Oh my god.
But if we are their fuel, are we not also their strength?
Like I used to.
Yeah, she's gone. Oh, she cut her hair and left the... Oh, that's the necklace that he gave to Claudia. Oh, oof. Oh, yeah, wasn't he, like, carrying it after they killed their family? So she's like, ooh, let's be dark monarchs together. And then she bounced the moment that he said okay. But I guess maybe he wasn't really committed to it and she knew that. But why is she committed to it? I'm trying to understand that. What's going on there? Because I feel like this is not something that Gabby cares about. But then again, this is a different... This is Gabriella, not Gabrielle. So I have to just reset my expectations for her character, right?
Did your assassin misspell your name in his manifesto?
I left my wit in Philadelphia. Free my driver, go away.
You quit?
Everyone quit.
Yeah, after
Mass
shooting?
can be quite
Yeah.
What about your family?
They almost died. And not from a vampire shit. Not from vampire violence. They almost died the human way. That's crazy.
Their clips and tattoos and something new and triggering around the corner to serve their unwelcomeness, I'm sure.
His mommy issues are strong. God damn. They are really emphasizing him. Oh, sorry, the voices?
What voices?
Let's have a listen.
Why do you come back? Why won't you let me hate you?
Yeah, why don't you just stay gone? Oh, they're pissed about the shooting, the attempted shooting, even though that wouldn't actually harm him. But I guess the intent is that, ooh.
You've been reaching them.
Yes, and I want not to reach them.
They are lost and angry and tired of enduring. Your music speaks to them. They long for communion.
I'll never do them justice. Instead, let me paraphrase a more eminent vampire caught in a similar situation. It is difficult to explain how her words
Not what Louis said.
How efficiently succinct and impenetrable her argument was.
I need a mean, mean mama, need a ravenous queen. Give me the long, dark death that feed the future machine.
Well, first of all, fuck you, bro. So interesting framing of using the words that convinced Louis to accept the dark gift and repurposing them to show the mom convincing Lestat to do whatever the hell she's convincing him to do. So, yeah, reframing that as very predatory, which it was. Like, I'm sorry, Louis' turning was very predatory. So he's aligning those images with each other. And then he has all of his, well, no, that's him. I was going to say all of his fledglings, but at least his fledglings up to now. But he also has himself as a child. But still, that these are his fledglings up to this point. You know, Gabby, Nikki, Louis, and Claudia, but then himself as a child. So.
You had to be there, I guess.
I need a mean, mean mama, need a ravenous queen. Give me the long, dark death that feed the future machine.
Oh my God. I need a mean mom and a ravenous queen. That's obviously an Akasha reference, but oh my God, I have a thought, y'all. I have a thought. I'm going to save it for the discussion. Because we're almost at the end of the episode. We've got like 2 minutes left. Let me just let it finish out. Oh my God, y'all. I have a...
Listen to tracks.
I have a thought. Y'all, I have a theory, and I'm just gonna fucking say it. That's Akasha. That's not Gabby. That's Akasha. That's Akasha in Gabby's body. Bro, that's Akasha in Gabby's body. She is mind controlling. I've been trying to figure out what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on with Gabby, y'all? That's Akasha. She's been acting weird in modern day. Her best scenes that feel more like her are the ones that are in the past. And even, there's only one wrinkle, is the fact that, before I get to the wrinkle, one of the things that Akasha can do is that in her long sleep, she's been in a long sleep and been taken care of by Marius, etc., etc. But one of the things that she is able to do is that she's able to use the mind gift to body hop and to wander the earth in the minds of other vampires and other people and just see the world change around her. Even though her body is in a coma, her mind, and I think Enkill does this too, but I know for sure Akasha does this. She's able to do that and throughout the centuries and stuff like that, and just be in the backs of the minds of people around her. And she calls people to her to do her bidding like that. She is aware of the world around her. It's one of the things, even though she has allowed her body to go into a comatose state and a statue state, she's aware of everything around her at all times, and she's controlling things, and she calls minions to her, people to her to be her keeper and whatnot. That's how she gets Marius, and there's a couple, and even Pandora later, when Pandora becomes one of the keepers as well, she calls him forward, calls her to him to regulate Marius, and that's how Pandora gets turned into a vampire, right? She's able to use her mental powers to just throw herself into anybody in the bloodline. I think, I can't remember if she can do it to her direct fledglings. I think the rule stands still with her, that she can't communicate like that with her own fledglings. But at the very least, she's able to do it with literally everybody else. And obviously, she's the queen. She's the first vampire, and she holds the soul of Armand. I said Armand. He's on my mind. Amel in her body. So she's the most powerful vampire ever known, right? Because of this. And also, it's dangerous to kill her, because killing her means killing all vampire kind, right? So you can't kill her. So she has that level of protection. But that's something that she would do. She would use the mind gift to make people follow her and to bring, and she's also a megalomaniac. And I was like, why is Gabby talking like a megalomaniac this episode? She feels why does she care about the Great Conversion? I've been wondering this whole season. Why the fuck does Gabby care about the Great Conversion? Gabby from the books doesn't care about stuff like that. She just wants to be out in the woods, being a predator in the woods or whatever the fuck. Burying herself under the ground, traveling the world and shit like that. Yeah, she likes causing a little mayhem, but it's not world-ending apocalyptic mayhem. She doesn't care about that. What the fuck was going on? So I'm struggling. That was the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing I've been struggling with this whole season. And if we end this season and find out that actually she's Akasha, it would make so much sense. Or if not fully Akasha, but has been, ensorcelled by Akasha and is now following Akasha. I mean, what does that do for Gabby's character, though? I mean, that's a wild way to introduce Gabby as a character, though, because it does prevent us. Well, the flashbacks allow us to get the authentic Gabby, I guess, but it does a little bit underserve Gabby's character, because we have been making her unbearable this season. Absolutely unbearable, especially in the modern day scenes. And it's Gabby is evil and she's terrible and she abandons Lestat and she abuses Lestat, etc., etc. But she's a different kind of terrible than how she's been this whole season. And her being Akasha would make sense. It would make sense why she's so into the Great Conversion shit and cares about that. And even here where she's trying to convince him to lead vampires in some kind of vampiric apocalypse. You can be the leader. That feels like Akasha. That's Akasha's megalomaniac ass. Everything that, and then they have this song here where they compare the mom to the Dark Queen. I need a Dark Queen. The Dark Queen is Akasha. For sure. This is fucking Akasha. Either this is Akasha or she's being influenced by Akasha to do her bidding. the only wrinkle, and I'll get back to the wrinkle. The only wrinkle in my theory is that she had these megalomaniac thoughts there at the beachside when they were at the light tower. And that theoretically is before Lestat met Akasha, which means that it would be before Akasha, either of them is on Akasha's radar, because right after she abandons him there, that's when Lestat buries himself or tries to bury himself, and Marius finds him because he's been searching the world looking for Marius, and throwing out his thoughts looking for Marius, right? And Marius, looking for Marius. Marius hears them and tracks them down. It's like, who the fuck is calling my name like this? Who? Because he's trying to be incognito because he's taking care of Akasha and Akil. So he finds him. He's like, who the fuck are you? And why are you calling my name out in the vampire web like this? Exposing me, yada, yada, yada. So he brings Lestat there and is like trying to, you know, essentially re-educate him. And he tells him the whole history, yada, yada. You know, Queen, we'll see it, I'm sure, next season. But that's when Lestat first meets Akasha, and he first catches her eye. And then there's a period of time where, you know, everything happens and we get all of the events of the interview with the vampire and Louis and Claudia and all that stuff. And then after all of that, he goes to sleep again, takes another dirt nap. Lestat takes another dirt nap, and then he's woken up and becomes a rock star. And then his music awakes Akasha again, and it catches her ear, like the story of their people, because he's singing the story of their people in his songs. And that is what causes her to wake up and decide not to just wake up, you know, astral project, but like actually wake her body up and start causing mayhem. But if they are saying that, if they are really setting up this idea that this is Akasha and she has been using her mind powers to start the apocalypse early, because all season we've been seeing little things happening in the background that's like, ooh, that's apocalyptic. Ooh, that's apocalyptic. We've been hyper focusing on Lestat, but like there's been little things in the background that have been leading up to it. That would do a lot to make me understand what the hell they're doing with Gabby's character. I still think it's a creative choice that's underserving Gabby and her individuality as a character, but it would be something that at the very least is intentional. I do think it's underserving her for the sake of a twist. If this is true, you know, I could be wrong. This is a theory. But if it is true, I do think it's a little bit underserving Gabby. But this is also the episode where we got the most authentic Gabby, which is the conversation. Sorry, I'm just in discussion mode now. We got the conversation between her and Lestat in the inn earlier, where she's talking about her feelings, her relationship with her identity, how she's no longer a Marchesa, and she's no longer that girl from Italy that the guy was talking about. And she's no longer a mother. She's no longer a wife. She's no longer a woman. You know, that was very Gabby. It would also, her being Akasha would also explain why she's not masked in modern day a little bit more than just, I want to please my son by being feminine for him. Because Akasha's not masked at all. Like, you know, she's very, you know, she believes herself to be the pinnacle of womanhood and everything like that. Very in opposition to Gabby, actually. Gabby rejects womanhood completely, and completely removes herself from the very concept of womanhood. Whereas Akasha weaponizes the concept of womanhood as, you know, I am the pinnacle of womanhood, but then she turns it into a dark, kind of violent, horrifying matriarchy, because at her core, at Akasha's core, she's a megalomaniac, right? So she uses the facsimile of feminism and womanhood as a disguise for what her true purpose is, which is power, right? So it's very much in an opposition to Gabby, which is why it was very weird. That would make more sense because that's how Akasha is. She weaponizes femininity and she weaponizes womanhood and she weaponizes concepts of feminism as if she is a benevolent queen here to save the world. But in actuality, she's just perpetuating the same patriarchal bullshit that has been in place forever. And she's just utilizing the same tools to rule and control everyone around her. And she's actually not doing anything for the world or whatever the hell. Like, you know? So, there's something interesting. If that is the route they are going, I almost forgive some of the writing for Gabby. I almost forgive it. I do think that it's, like I said, I think it's underserving Gabby. I think it's been weird and a little bit misogynistic. But if that's the purpose, is that good? If the purpose was to be misogynistic, is that okay? I think it wouldn't bother me as much if the other female characters weren't being written in a way that feels a little misogynistic too. Like, I think that's the problem. I think we needed more variety for the female characters this season. I do feel like we have lost something with some of the female... Like, this show has never been the pinnacle when it comes to female writing. Let's be honest about that, even from the beginning. Women are often really disposable. Women are often really hypersexualized, sexualized in a way that feels a lot of bit misogynistic. It's a problem. It's a thing. Or they've been stripped of autonomy. I know that's the purpose of Claudia's storyline, is for her to be stripped of autonomy over and over and over and over and over and over again. I understand that. But again, we have few female characters in this show and we don't have too many counterpoints to these things, right? Like, you can have a storyline in which Claudia is stripped of her autonomy as long as you have other storylines in which other black women aren't, you know? But we're not really getting that. Even Antoinette felt very caricature, unfortunately. Like, they gender bent Antoine into Antoinette and unfortunately made her kind of a misogynistic caricature too. So it's been an ongoing problem. Let us be fucking honest. It's been an ongoing problem. So with that in mind, to have then flatten Gabby's character so that you can service a twist at the end of the season, hard to say whether or not that's a good creative decision, if that's the way that they're going. But again, this is speculation. I could be completely wrong, and I could just be grasping for straws on why Gabby is so different from her book counterpart. And in actuality, we're just playing it straight, and Gabby truly has been taking on megalomaniac ideals and is like, yeah, let's take over the world as vampires. Chaos in the streets. Strangle these babies. Oh yeah, back to the flaw in my logic. Yeah, why would Akasha care about... Well, you know, to be fair, I just mentioned that she was casting her mind out and stuff like that. So maybe... But that feels a bit coincidental, right? Coincidentally, Akasha was casting her mind out and came upon Gabby's mind and thought she might be a good vessel for a short time. And maybe that's why she started talking about dark monarchs and shit like that. And we need to be more evil, yada, yada. And I'm like, I mean, but I also might be misremembering the books and forgetting a conversation like that between Lestat and Gabby that was legitimately Gabby. And just misremembering Gabby's character design. Could be. Very easily could be. Like I said, it's been 15, 20 years since I read these books. So I could very easily just be forgetting a conversation. But it just feels, I don't know. My impression of Gabby is not this. She's evil in a more personal way to Lestat, but she's not megalomaniac evil. She's not apocalyptic evil, right? So that's what I'm struggling with a little bit. Sorry. I did write down some notes between the pause and the start, as I've been doing this season. to kind of keep myself on track. I think it's going to be another 4-hour video, y'all. I'm so sorry. What the fuck is going on with me? I have a lot to say. Okay. So I've talked about the Devil's Road concept. No, I actually have not. The Devil's Road is the path that all vampires travel in their vampiric existence. So once you become a vampire, your life as you live it becomes the Devil's Road. They mentioned it in season 2 with the Daciana woman, where she talks about, the Devil's Road, and how Claudia will laugh and stuff like that. Interesting. Yeah, so they oh, maybe I did talk about everything I wanted to say there. It would go a long way to explain some of Gabby's characteristics that felt really off this season if they are actually just Akasha, because those actually track. And it would set up the Akasha Gabby opposing, situation where, let's say she does all of this and then she jumps back into her body and wakes up and is like, haha, it was me the whole time, Lestat. And then she lets Gabby go. That would be the impetus for Gabby to join forces with Louis and others to rescue Lestat when he gets kidnapped. And she would have a real personal beef because Akasha took over her body. Which, fair enough. I could see that leading us into season 4 for a storyline for Gabby. Because Gabby, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's watching, because I did find out that some of y'all watch me even though you haven't read the books, even though I talk flagrantly about the books. But Gabby is a character who does not die. She's around pretty much to the end. So, we're going to still have her in all of these seasons. Maybe not in every season as fully as she's been in this one, but certainly in 4 and 5, we're going to have her be a huge presence. Okay, let's switch gears. We've already talked about during the episode the Lestat and Gabby first time, all that terrible situation. So I'm not going to belabor that. Let's talk Lestat and Armand. If we're talking about Lestat and his abusers, Akasha, his mom, Armand, 3 major abusers in Lestat's life. I talked a little bit about that scene between them on the bus was crazy sexual tension there. That was so funny. But of course it was, Lestat being him and using his body as a weapon and everything like that against Armand and, look but don't touch and all that. You can never touch this ever again, I'm sure. He was saying in his mind, etc., etc. Speaking of, so I mean, I guess I've talked about it during the episode, this concept of Lestat being Armand's first lover in 250 years after 250 years of forced, violent celibacy. And how that would shape Armand's behavior with Lestat quite a lot in France, and how absolutely diabolical he was with Lestat during that period, and Nikki during that period. And it would very much set up his crash out once Lestat says, I'm leaving Paris, which would make sense because he just, if I'm right, and the lengthening of the time that they spend in Paris to at least about a year, maybe more, we don't know, so that Lestat can be there during Nikki's decline, and then be culpable in Nikki's death in a more direct way. The decision to do that and then build this I don't want to say romantic, but maybe romantic, at the very least sexual relationship between Armand and Lestat. They have done something to complicate the feelings between Lestat and Armand in a way that the books were very complicated, but up till now I feel like I feel like a lot of my opinion about Lestat and Armand is informed heavily by my knowledge of the books. And I'm trying to think about if I had absolutely zero knowledge of their dynamic and I was just purely going off of show, I do think there's been a flattening of the relationship between Lestat and Armand, because we haven't seen it, right? Like, I've been very consistent about the biggest issue that I've been having this season is that we're not seeing these scenes that give us context for why they are feeling the way that they feel in modern day. That's Lestat and Gabby. That's Lestat and Armand. I'm sure it's going to be that once we get into some other relationships. Also, why is Armand... Like, this book is the first time that we get Armand's story. We get Armand's story, I want to say 3 times in the books. Here, in his book, The Vampire Armand, and then again in Marius's book, Blood and Gold, right? We touch base with Armand's past 3 times. So we get 3 different POVs. We get Lestat's POV of Armand and his history. Then we get Armand's POV of Armand's history. And then we get Marius's POV of Armand's history. Which, you know, fucked. But anyway, so in each time we get recontextualization of Armand, his psyche, his behavior, his life. But The Vampire Lestat is the first time that we get like a full-on section that's just devoted to Armand. We get a section that's devoted to the coven as a whole, including Armand. And then we get a section in which he tells Gabby and Lestat his story, but in a, I don't want to say sanitized, but it's in a certain way. And it's also being told through Lestat because Lestat is writing his memoir. So it's Lestat. It's very much a game of telephone where Lestat is remembering when Armand told him his story. So double unreliable narrators there. And then, of course, we get his actual book that's later. So you got to also remember that memory has been probably a bit even more hazy because it's much later that Armand is recounting his story. But he also has a very specific agenda of he's telling his story so that his kids will read his story once they're old enough and will come to understand him. And of course, there's some discrepancies between those two because Anne Rice wasn't planning on writing the Vampire Armand book until later. And then she wrote it and then stuff contradicts. But Anne Rice has this very convenient out in all of her writing that contradictions can be somewhat explained by the fact that they're being told in extreme POV of whoever's telling the story, whoever's telling their own story, etc., etc. So you can just chalk discrepancies up to somebody else was telling that story and they didn't have the full picture, yada yada yada. But this is the book where we first really start to understand some of Armand's psyche and his ideology and why he is the way that he is and why that is set up in opposition to Lestat. And then that starts their, centuries-long frenemies, twin flames thing, ideological battle and juxtaposition itself. And the problem with this season is that we aren't getting all of those really rich scenes between Lestat and Armand in which they're really going into their philosophy of the world. We touch a little bit on it with the idea of the Savage Garden, and they've been bringing up the garden over and over and over again this season. But we still aren't fully getting, a full picture of their dynamic or of Armand's character. I'm hoping that the last 3 episodes will give us more flashbacks of Lestat and Armand, because I think it's actually one of the most, other than him and Gabby, I maintain that it's one of the most important dynamics that they have to nail. And if they don't nail it by the end of the season, it's going to impact future storylines in a negative way. It's going to make things more difficult. Now, maybe we will continue to get flashbacks of their relationship as we get out of this season and into season 4 and 5. But I just feel like this has to be the time where we really nail their dynamic. The good and the bad, we need to nail it, right? Yeah. Let's talk about that Big Boss song. Why was that kind of weird? It wasn't a very good song, but we kind of knew that from the beginning because the Big Boss song was terrible. But I don't care about that. Why? Presumably he was singing that song as a diss track about Armand's behavior as a coven leader against Claudia. But I didn't feel like the song was about Claudia. Like, he was wearing the pigtails and everything like that, like Baby Lulu, but like that felt a little performative too. Because the song wasn't really about Claudia. Like, I wish that the song was about Claudia. Like, about what harm Armand did to Claudia. But it felt like just, hey, I just want to roast you for your looks and the fact that you got gang raped as a child. Like, that's what the song felt like. And I was like, that has nothing to do with Claudia. Why is this song not about Claudia? I wish the song was about Claudia. The only line that felt like it was about Claudia was when he was listing the rules, the great laws, and saying, "Ho, you get to choose who lives and dies." That was the only time that it felt like it was about Claudia, and it was just that one line. I'd have to rewatch the lyrics again, I guess, but like it didn't feel like it was about Claudia, and I wish it had been. We did get a little bit of a hint that maybe it was also about their sexual relationship and that there was something far more dubious or fully non-consensual about their sexual relationship, which would track. So maybe it was some about that, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of weird jokes, a lot of weird child sexual assault jokes in this episode that felt really uncomfortable. There was that one, the whole ragdoll one, which was like, oh no. But, you know, whatever. It was in a diss track. I get it. But the one from Gabby about Armand getting molested by his father, their uncle. That was... but I mean, I guess par for the course for Gabby because she's not going to take child sexual assault seriously, given her own track record with it. I guess also her track record with it because she also was a victim of child sexual assault. So fair enough. So that makes sense. But then we also had the P. Diddy joke in the beginning of this episode. What was that? That one I think was the most egregious because that wasn't rooted in character. Like that wasn't rooted in like the Gabby jabs were rooted in character. Lestat during the song is rooted in character. I understand why these characters are saying these things to or about Armand. I get that. The P. Diddy joke was out of fucking nowhere and that was off color. That one was like, why are we saying that? That was weird. That one I didn't like at all. And I wish they hadn't done it. It's way too soon after everything that happened. And he hasn't even... Like, it's too soon to make a joke like that. That's a real life thing. That's a real thing. Everything that's happening in the show with Armand... Armand is a fake character. He's not a real person. This is a story. P. Diddy's a real person. And his victims are real people. That was not a good line or reference. I didn't like that at all. I think that was the worst one. That was one of the worst weird racist jokes. Weird jokes and weird racist jokes that we've had this episode. That was the worst one, in my opinion. Let's not do that. Okay. So I don't want to believe that anymore. I'm curious to see how they're going to evolve Lestat and Armand going forward. I truly think that we are crescendoing to the reveal of how badly Armand treated Lestat in the 1700s that will lead to how he treated Claudia. In a season that has been trying to discuss the violence that Claudia was subjected to you have to examine Armand's part in that because he was her ultimate doom, right? So I do think at the very least in the finale, we're going to re-examine Armand's relationship with Claudia. We're certainly going to re-examine it with Louis. I don't want to talk about Armand and Daniel yet. I want to save them for later. But I do want to talk about Louis because we have, again, Claudia haunting this narrative. Claudia haunting Louis and him trying to find her in Regina, and absolutely about to ruin this girl's life. I'm so sorry. That was a crazy sequence of events. Like, I think that was the woof. But it was also the most emotionally devastating because Louis is in this alone. He is just, trying to work through his grief finally that he's not been allowed to access fully because he's been under Armand's control this entire time. And so he hasn't had time to himself to really sit with Claudia's loss because Armand has been trying to do all kinds of things to make Louis forget about it so that he doesn't have to take responsibility for his part in her death. And so Louis has not had any room to breathe, and now he is, and it's making him spiral. He did the whole stuff with Bruce earlier, and that was so empty, and it didn't bring him satisfaction because nothing that he does there is going to bring her back. And now he's here having met her doppelganger, and now he's trying to use her to bring Claudia back. And it's like, it's not going to work, honey. She's not Claudia. But it makes sense that he would do this. It's very like him in what did Daniel say? Lestat is not Lestat. Louis is paying a whore to talk with him, just like he did in episode 1 of season 1, and that's basically what he did with Daniel in the 70s. He was paying a whore to talk with him, sit and talk with him, and he did the same thing in present day with Daniel again. And now this is technically the fourth time, because it happened with Daniel twice, and all of them being sex workers, because now we learn that Regina has an OnlyFans or whatever, like all of them being sex workers or participating in transactional sex work in some way. Miss Lily, of course, being a sex worker back in the 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s. And then, sorry, I have something in my eye. And then we have Daniel, who used to have sex for money and for drugs all throughout the 70s. So he also is, a former sex worker in a sense, certainly having transactional sex. And now here we have the modern day equivalent of sex work, which is having an OnlyFans, which is wild that he went online and looked that up. Oh goodness. Louis is spiraling out of control. He needs to be in therapy. Like, I mean, Armand also needs to be in therapy so he can stay his ass there too. But everybody on this fucking show needs to be in therapy. Good Lord. Everybody needs to join Armand's support group, but Armand needs to not be leading it anymore. He needs somebody else to be leading it. And not anybody on the show. He needs everybody here needs an actual professional helping them. Okay? 3 hours and 30 minutes, y'all. Good Lord. And I definitely have a bunch of stuff that I still want to talk about. I still want to talk a little bit about Regina, because we also have now this storyline with Louis and Regina. Do we think Baby Jinx is going to be following Louis and is going to see his connection with Regina and kill her? I just genuinely do not know if Regina is going to make it out of here alive. I do think that this episode has given her a lot of depth, though, and Delaney is doing a great job of differentiating between Regina and Claudia. And then we had that super unnerving scene where she looks into the camera directly at us, the audience, and starts talking in Claudia's voice. That was fucking crazy. Wasn't that crazy? Oh my God. That was so unnerving and ugh. Whew. I don't know what is happening there, but it's all bad. And I don't think it's going to end well for Regina. But they did give us, more about who she is in this episode. But like I said, I don't know if she's going to survive past the season. Like, are we taking her into season 4? I don't know. But it's just all really sad. And I feel so bad for Louis because he is alone and he's struggling so bad. And he can't rely on fucking Lestat right now. Like, he can't, like, he has Lemuel, but, like, he and Lemuel are very specifically aromantic in their relationship and trying to keep from being, emotionally connected because that's not what he wants from Lemuel, and I don't think that's what Lemuel wants. He doesn't want that either. I did read online, isn't his character supposed to be specifically aromantic because the actor is aromantic? Maybe not because the actor is aromantic, but in alignment with the actor. But, so he can't rely on Lemuel, and Lemuel also isn't involved, so he doesn't know Claudia, he doesn't know anything about her, and so he can't be a sounding board. The only people he has are Lestat, Daniel, or Armand, and it's obviously not going to be him relying on Armand's ass. He's, the cause of all this grief, And he can't rely on Lestat because Lestat is running around telling everybody that everything that happened in the book was some bullshit, which means that he's not respecting Claudia's words either. Like, so he can't rely on Claudia, or he can't rely on Lestat about Claudia either. Like, he's just alone. And Daniel betrayed him and published the book without his permission, even though he very specifically burned the book and was like, no, we're not doing this. I'm going to give you the money, though. Like, and he went behind his back, betrayed him, and put the book out there anyway and caused all this grief to bubble back up. Like, this is a mess. And Louis is alone, and I hate it. He needs somebody in his corner. Somebody who's a friend for him, like a genuine friend. And he has no one except for Lemuel, who can't provide him the comfort that he needs. Ugh. Yeah, no, this is a mess. Yeah, that's not going to end well. So, oof. All right. We only have half an hour before I hit the 4-hour mark again. Good Lord. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Armand and Daniel, since we were talking about how Armand has harmed people. Armand in AA was fucking ridiculous. What was that? Genuinely, the funniest way they could have taken Armand's character after all of the crazy shit that he pulled the last 2 seasons. Diabolical shit. And they were like, what if Armand actually joined a support group to get some fucking help? That's funny as hell. Armand, of all vampires, Armand of all people, being the only one in this show to actually try and get mental health help. Funny. Fucking hilarious. He's the only one to actually make an effort to improve himself. And of course, he's going about it in the worst way possible. Like, why are you trying to 12-step program your way out of murder, sir? You murdered Claudia. You murdered Madeline. And you tried to murder Louis. And you terrorized Lestat and Nikki. And then you terrorized Daniel and Louis again in modern day. And brainwash and erase their memories and replace their memories or whatever. Like you tortured Daniel. Sir, you cannot 12-step program your way out of that crazy shit, sir. But it makes sense for Armand's character to think that he can. It's very childish, right? It's a super childish way to approach this, which makes sense for him because, again, because of his very specific childhood being sex trafficked and repeatedly gang raped and all kinds of shit like that, and raped and groomed by a pedophile, and then kidnapped through to his adulthood, and then kidnapped and then indoctrinated into a cult. This man does not have a healthy framework for how to handle making amends. And it's very childish because he has a serious arrested development. He has not been able to develop emotionally past the horrific trauma of his childhood, really. And then he was locked in that when he became a vampire. Like, obviously in the books, he was turned as a 17-year-old, but the same applies to this Armand. It's just that the thing that locked him in his arrested development is trauma, is his CPTSD. And so he approaches things in a very specific way that makes sense for his character. It's actually some of the most intriguing character work I've seen, especially Asad Zaman. Asad Zaman's portrayal of Armand in the show is extremely intriguing to me. It's extremely intriguing character work we're getting out of this. But yeah, so he has like severe arrested development. He approaches things and he tries to solve things like a child would. And it's very childish and petty and things like that. And that's been very consistent with his character the entire show, right? But it's very him. It's very transactional. He also has a history of transactional sex. Again, we're going back to this concept of sex work, but it's not really sex work for Armand, right? Like, he wasn't a sex worker. He was a sex slave, right? He was enslaved. He was kidnapped and trafficked and then bought and groomed, and he was a sex slave throughout the entirety of that. So it's actually a little bit different for him than being just like being a sex worker. You know, it's a very different framework for his mind, right? Like, where there's also enslavement with it in a different way. Now, this is not to say that modern sex work doesn't also go hand in hand with modern slavery, because it does. There's a lot of sexual slavery in modern day sex work, right? That's very prevalent. But there's also sex work that's not exactly slavery as well. I guess that's an interesting thing to think about when we think about the way that the show has adapted Louis, because in the books he was a slaver. He was a plantation owner who owned slaves, and when they translated him to TV, they made him a pimp who essentially exploited and abused women for sex work, which there could be some of them who were trafficked or enslaved. So he could still have been participating in slavery even in the show, although we don't have any explicit knowledge of whether or not any of the women in his brothels were victims of sexual slavery, but they may have been. Very easily could have been. You know, there's just very easily could have been. But it's interesting to think about the way that they have framed sex work versus sexual slavery. I've talked about some of the off-color jokes this episode that didn't feel like they landed right for me. But I do think that there has been continuous discussion of sexual enslavement since pretty much the beginning. And so Armand, having experienced this, would have severe trauma when it comes to sexual intimacy, romantic intimacy, his concepts of it, his ideas of it, and how to handle intimacy, intimate relationships, whether romantic, platonic, whatever, familial. Those are all wrapped up in one thing, in one continuous trauma for Armand, right? So he would have difficulty navigating relationships. He just will. And that mindset for him is what leads him to think that I can kill my lover's daughter, sister, whatever we want to call Claudia at the time of Paris. I can kill two of my lover's daughter and then go my B and 12-step program my way out of that. Just like he did when he decided to devote himself to Louis. All that stuff happened with the Coven, whether he planned it all or just through his, inaction or through his cowardice, as he mentioned in this episode, he allowed the Coven to do this and didn't stop them, and then eventually started to participate with them. Either way, he did all of this, and it resulted in Claudia's death. And it didn't turn out the way that he wanted, because Claudia's death completely shattered the relationship that he had with Louis. He thought he'd be able, well, first of all, he thought that he was going to get rid of Louis too. He was going to kill both of them and just go back to the coven. And that didn't work. That he didn't like how that felt either. So he decided to betray the coven. So he betrayed the coven by trying to side with Louis and date Louis and let Louis do whatever, right? In opposition to the coven. And then he felt like Louis rejected him. So he betrayed Louis to the coven and was like, all right, well, we're just going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to go back to the coven. I'm going to let them kill Claudia and Louis. And we're just going to start over, reset, right? Then he didn't like that. He didn't like being back with the coven. Something about it wasn't working. He did actually want to be with Louis. So he then betrays the coven and then goes back to Louis. And then he decides at that point, after he brings him out of the wall and lets Louis kill the rest of the coven, he decides, I think, in my opinion, that's when he decides to completely and utterly devote himself to Louis. But of course, it's too late. He's already ruined his relationship, and Claudia's dead. Claudia and Madeline are dead now. So there's no coming back from that, right? But he thinks that if I just do this, if I just serve Louis, and if I'm so completely devoted to him for forever. Remember, he says something about making it up to Louis, and then Louis says, you'll never make it up to me. And then he goes, I know. And that was such a moment, because you know that Armand, in his mind, he's taking that as, oh, this means security, because I can spend the rest of eternity trying to make it up to you, and you will allow me to be next to you trying to make it up to you. And that, in his mind, speaks structure and permanence, right? That this will be forever. We're going to be doing this forever. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do everything that you say. I'm going to give you everything of me that I can. And you will allow me to make you my new purpose, my new structure. And trying to make it up to you is going to be my new structure. That's how he framed his marriage to Louis. And that's why they fall back into the Maître Armand dynamic, is because in his mind, doing everything that Louis says is making up for the fact that he facilitated or assisted or outright planned the lynching trial, right? The murder of Claudia and Louis and Madeline, or Claudia and Madeline, and the almost murder of Louis. He thinks that if he devotes himself completely to Louis from now on, he can transactionally, if I do this, then I get this, right? With their marriage, which is, of course, doesn't fucking work, because emotions don't work like that, right? And it starts to spiral, and then he spends 20, and then you get that scene in episode 5, season 2, episode 5, where Louis in the coffin and he's feeding him blood or whatever, and he's like, have I made up for my part of Paris or whatever? And he truly thinks that if he does this, and this, he's going to get this, and this result. And it's like, no, honey. And then it's even more performative, because you're not even, at that time, you hadn't even told him your true involvement in the lynching trial. So, like, you weren't actually being honest. You wanted full forgiveness without even full confession, sir. And I do feel like we got a little bit in these scenes too. Like, listen, I think they were funny as hell, but I do think that there was a bit of, there's artifice and performance in them. He thinks that I'm sure he has a completely different agenda with going to these AA meetings in the beginning, but he probably sat down there and had started soaking in the language, the Addicts Anonymous language or whatever. And it was like, ooh, structure. Because that's how he is. He's always looking for structure, right? He's like, ooh, structure. I can do this. Oh, wait, you can make amends by doing this? I can insert this coin and get this toy? Like, that's how he's thinking about it. That's how he's approaching it. So he's taking the wrong thing out of the program, by the way. I mean, I know that there's a lot of controversy about the program and you know, the fact that it started as a very Christian thing and how heavily that influences the program and how that ends up being a corrupting force of it, and it becomes a little bit culty. Like, you know, we could sit there and talk about it forever, and maybe the show is commenting on how sometimes AA support groups can quickly become culty. But regardless, at its base level, making amends is meant to be you feel regret for your actions, and in your path towards taking accountability for how you have harmed others and harmed yourself in your behavior, you are trying to make amends to them by being of service to them, by approaching them honestly and truthfully, being open about what happened, your part, your responsibility and your accountability of it, and trying to find a way to genuinely apologize. And ultimately, the people you have harmed have no obligation to forgive you, right? They have no obligation to forgive you. But the point of it is not to get forgiveness. It's to offer regret. It's to offer service to other people. It's to not just begging for forgiveness to make you feel better or to have a specific agenda or result. That is completely the opposite point of making amends. You're meant to be like giving that person closure, giving them something that will help them after you wrong them, you know, and then your behavior is supposed to change after that so that you never do this again and you have truly learned your lesson about it. That is not what Armand is doing. He's using it as a get out of jail free card. It's interesting. So there's something obviously insincere about his approach. It's not going to work. People are obviously going to get pissed off about it, which we saw with both Daniel and Lestat. We haven't gotten to the apology with Louis, if he's going to do such. I'm sure it'll happen in a future episode. We're going to get an interaction between them. I don't know how that's going to go, but I can tell you right now, Louis is going to take it the least well. I think it's going to be real bad news bears for you, Armand. But he has to go through this. So there is something really performative about his approach of this, and very, you know, and even in his speeches, like we went over the speeches multiple times, but even in the speeches, they felt a little performative and still felt a little bit like he was shirking actual responsibility and accountability. Like the decision to call it a matinee production instead of what it actually was, which was a lynching. And a lynching trial. I know the show is never going to call it a lynching because the show also is shirking accountability about how they used that lynching imagery kind of flagrantly in season 2. And I don't think they were anticipating the fallout from it, which is why they have been very deliberately distancing themselves from using that word, even though that's what happened. It's very noticeable that the show is doing that. But that's a complaint that I have about the way that the show approached using lynching imagery a little bit. It was effective, but I feel like they used it in a way that felt more evocative for evocativeness is that a word? Just for the spectacle, which is its own problem, versus actually wanting to say something genuinely interesting about the way vampirism liberates so many people but can't liberate black people from racism because people are taking their racism into their vampirism too. Like, there's something interesting there, and maybe we will circle back around to start talking about it, but until the show is ready to call it a lynching, I don't trust the show to actually circle back around to talk about the way racism interacts with vampirism. Anyway, Armand does feel like he's kind of shirking some responsibility in his speech, especially the speech, because we didn't hear the speech, the letter that he wrote to Daniel, because Daniel interrupted, but we did hear the full letter that he wrote to Lestat, and that one, he's sort of taking responsibility for his mistakes, but he also is a little bit like shirking responsibility. And so it feels performative. But I think there is actually some weird, like, I know this is a crazy thing for me to say, but I actually do think there is some sincerity in trying. Does that make sense? His approach is wrong. It's wrong-headed. It's not going to work. It's going to piss people off even more. It's going to hurt people even more. But the effort of actually trying does actually feel sincere. And that's where the sincerity is. It's not in actually the words itself. It's in the fact that he even attempted this. And maybe we will reveal by the end of the season that this was all manipulation, but I actually don't think we're going to do that. I actually think this was genuinely him in his mind thinking, how can I repair my relationships after I destroyed them, after I lost everything? And happening to be in AA and then soaking up those tools and then going, oh, I can apply these tools to help me in this side. Like, I'm planning this. He's compartmentalizing, I think. I'm doing this over here, but I can take some of what I'm learning here to apply to my personal life too. And maybe I can, repair and regain my relationships, because his relationships with Lestat, Louis, and Daniel are his three most important relationships right now. Like, they are, from Armand's view, those three are his people. Like, those are the people that he has chosen to try and attempt companionship with. All three of them are very important to him, right? Like, in a way that nobody else is. Like, he loves them in his way, as much as he can, in the way that he can. But he loves Lestat and Louis and Daniel in three completely different ways. But he does love them. And he's attempting to figure out how to love them. But he doesn't really know how to show that because he's super fucking damaged. I don't know if I would go so far as to call him a sociopath. But maybe I would, actually. He is a little bit of a sociopath. He's a TV sociopath. I mentioned it because that's what Daniel called him, as a sociopath. He's you know how TV shows use those words. Those words mean something very different in real life medical terms, and they're certainly not used really in medical terms in that way anymore, because it's considered reductive. But in TV language, in TV fictional world, we have ideas about what a sociopath is, what a psychopath is, all of these diagnoses that aren't really that are used as plot devices and tools for character, right? But they are almost always in contradictory to real life diagnoses of people, of real people. So, but in TV terms, I would say, yeah, I could see him being characterized, if you want to, as a sociopath. I wouldn't probably do that, but he's close to it, What was I saying? Oh yeah, so he's trying to use these tools to help him repair his most important relationships, which are Lestat, Louis, and Daniel. Those are his three top most important relationships, because he doesn't know that Marius is still alive yet. We are going to learn that eventually, and he will too, and it's going to be super difficult. But even once he learns Marius is still alive, his love for Lestat, Louis, and Daniel doesn't wane. It's just that their relationships become different as Marius enters his life again, and as Armand goes through different stages of his life as well. But they're eternal beings. And also Armand is a little bit polyamorous. He's more polyamorous, I think, than others, but he's a little bit polyamorous, and he certainly has, in the books at least, been in polyamorous relationships before. So he is able to love multiple people at the same time. That his love for Lestat didn't end when he started falling in love with Louis, and his love for Louis didn't end when he started falling in love with Daniel. It's actually quite tangled for him, I think. But it's also because his love is very carnivorous. It's very selfish and possessive. So it also is like love not in its subjective form, or not in its objective form, but in its subjective form. We always have to remember there's a difference between objective love and subjective love. There's love the act and love the feeling. And for Armand, love the feeling is there and present for all three of them. But because his emotions are so tangled up in his trauma, it becomes really carnivorous and really violent. It's a violent love. It's a possessive and obsessive love, and it's a controlling love, right? But he still holds those for Lestat, Louis, and Daniel. It's still present. So he still wants to repair his relationships with them, even though everything is ruined and everything is terrible and they all hate him, you know? So he's trying his best. He's like, I'm going to use this tool to repair these relationships. And it's the worst possible thing he could possibly do. I can't. If he approaches Louis with this shit, Louis is going to flip out. But he's trying. He's trying to figure out what to do because he doesn't know what to do. And he's struggling because he doesn't have structure anymore. He's regressing. He's regressing back to his time as a coven leader. It's just very chaotic for him, I think, right now. And then we have that weird thing. Speaking of coven leaders, what the hell is he doing with Alex? What the hell is he doing with Alex? So I assumed that he was approaching Alex because Alex was Lestat's bandmate, and he still could be doing that. But I just assumed he was just going to torture and eat this guy after he got his information. But no, he started brainwashing him? Why? Are you sending him as a spy? What are we doing? Oh, and that made me think of, that makes me think of the, that makes me think of the two vampires who followed him out of the concert. The guy that was very prominently featured behind Armand when Lestat was all up in his face and everything. I was like, oh, is that a Telemask agent? He seemed really close. I feel like a Telemask agent would be off to the side in the shadows. So him being right behind Armand was strange. And then, of course, Armand left and he followed right behind, like he was following Armand. And then there was two of them. And then Armand, like, very subtly waved them off when Daniel approached. And then they went across the street. And it was a very small moment. So now I'm like, because those guys are definitely not vampires, I don't think. Their eyes didn't look like they were vampire eyes. So now I'm thinking, is Armand collecting thralls? Are we going full Dracula with Armand? Are they his Renfields? Because he did in the books have human thralls a little bit. Especially the early books. Interview with a Vampire. Because she was kind of doing a riff on Dracula, right? Like, the old world vampires were the inspiration for her writing that first book. So Armand very much felt like a very, Dracula-esque kind of vampire. She was creating new vampires with Louis and Lestat. Louis especially was a Byronic hero kind of vampire, so he was kind of, just different in the way that she was writing him, and she certainly set the tone for a lot of vampiric literature after her. Because of the way she wrote Louis specifically, and then later Lestat. But Armand, at least in the first book, felt very Dracula-esque, in my opinion. Still childlike and everything like that, and but she hadn't really settled into his cherub personality until the second book, where she was really building Armand, right? She really built his backstory and everything like that in the Vampire Lestat book. So that's when she settled in on the whole cherub stuff, because mostly the cherub stuff was with Claudia. Evil cherub stuff was with Claudia, and then Claudia dies at the end of the first book, and then we start the second book, and a lot of the characteristics that she gave to Claudia, she shifted over to Armand for the second book, and then pretty much that became Armand's personality from then going forward. The childlike features, and everybody's talking about him like he's the most beautiful angel, but he's actually demonic inside and all that stuff. He's monstrous. But if the show is going full Dracula with Armand. That would be interesting. So is he going to AA meetings? Did he start going to AA meetings initially to pray? I thought he was just praying on suicidal people for food, but if he's doing it with an agenda, then maybe he's preying on people that he can use the mind gift on to make them into a thrall. But to what end? I mean, if we're talking about agenda, we've had him state his agenda, or I don't want to say state his agenda, but state his position when it comes to the ideas of the Great Conversion. So is he like gathering followers or an army to combat the Great Conversion? But what would a bunch of humans be able to do against a bunch of vampires? Is he creating vampire hunters? What are we doing, Armand? Like, it's crazy because in the books, Armand does have a thing where he constantly kills fledglings, right? Like, if you're a baby vamp and you're in his territory, you're getting fucking killed. It was honestly miraculous that he didn't kill Lestat and Gabby, because they would have been prime targets for him to just kill a baby vamp. But then, of course, he tried to do that, and Lestat was more powerful than he had expected. So it intrigued him, and then it started his obsession. And then, of course, with Louis and Claudia are Lestat's children, so that immediately meant that he wasn't going to kill them outright, right? But every other vampire, they're the only exceptions. Every other baby vamp that comes into Lestat's territory, they're getting fucking killed. If they don't get inducted into the coven, they're getting killed outright. It becomes a thing. Like, if he moves somewhere and sets up a territory, then that's Armand's territory, and he's known throughout the vampire ranks that don't go to Armand's territory because he will kill you, okay? Unless you're more powerful than him, of the same power, or more powerful than him, or if you are Lestat or Louis, like, you are getting fucking killed if you come to Armand's territory. So I could see him going around killing a bunch of baby vamps, all these baby vamps that he's opposed to existing anyway. He doesn't want them to exist. He thinks that the Great Conversion is terrible, is a terrible idea. So I could see him going around killing a bunch of vamps. But what would human thralls do for him to do that? I could see why he would want to spy in Lestat's bus, because he believes that Lestat, for whatever reason, he believes that Lestat is going to lead the vampire apocalypse. So I can see him putting a spy on next to Lestat that he can control. But again, to what end? He's not going to kill Lestat. He loves Lestat. Like, he might try to stop Lestat, but he's not going to kill Lestat. That is not going to be his goal. And he's not going to kill Louis. Once we got out of that trial and he made a decision to devote himself to Louis and pull him out of the wall, Louis is no longer on a kill list for him. It's done. He's obviously not going to kill Daniel. He loves Daniel. He loves Daniel most of all, but he doesn't understand that he loves Daniel most of all yet. And in the more, I would say he has stages, right? He loves different people and he loves them continuously, but each time he falls in love a little bit more selflessly, right? And it's always a little bit more and a little bit more until you get to him with his kids, and that's his purest, most selfless connection. Still not 100%, but it's certainly the most one that we encounter with him. And so, Armand is going to Armand, so it's still going to be a little bit weird. And Anne Rice is going to Anne Rice, so she's incapable of creating relationships that aren't a little bit weird. But when it comes down to it, Armand's relationship to his children is the purest love that he knows, that he is able to find. And his search for purity is very strong throughout the books. Because, of course, his own trauma of being seen as pure and versus impure, and how his purity was tainted by his experience as a child and then most prominently his experience with the Children of Darkness, in which he feels like after he became a vampire, he became this evil, horrifying thing that was utterly corrupted and utterly ripped from the light of heaven, kind of thing. And so he feels damned, which is why he has such a strong opinion about turning other people into vampires. which of course caused him to distance himself from Daniel. So he turns him on a plane, like the Devil's Minion chapter. We might get the full scene. It'll be interesting if we do. I don't think it's this season. I truly think it's going to be next season that we get all of that. But still, turn him on a plane. We have this whole start of the Devil's Minion romance, which is going to be fun to watch other people react to. So I'm definitely going to be checking out reaction videos for that. Sorry, I feel like I've been licking my lips really badly because I've been talking for 4 hours straight. It's interesting to think about the way that Armand relates to Daniel as a father and as a maker, as a murderer. They're really doubling down on the father-son stuff here. The faucest. Which is prevalent in the books. All maker fledgling bonds are slightly vampire incestuous, right? All of them. Louis and Lestat, incestuous. Vampire incestuous, or whatever. Faucest, whatever we want to call it. All of them. The only time that a relationship isn't that way is when it's with a vampire and another vampire that have no maker connection at all. So the closest we've gotten so far in the show has actually been Lestat and Armand, as well as Claudia and Madeline, sort of. There is some vampire maker connection because Louis and Claudia are both from the same maker, so technically, if we're being honest, Claudia and Madeline are faux aunt and niece. But so it's still a little bit there, but it's still not as bad as we have the same, you're my maker and I'm your fledgling, father son, mother daughter, whatever, mother son shit that is happening with the other pairings. Again, this is all faux incest. It's not real incest, but Anne Rice uses language a lot, like incestuous language a lot, when she talks about the maker fledgling romantic pairings. But there are pairings that are not maker fledgling in these books. There's actually quite a few. I think I might have mentioned, when I was talking about Gabby, because she has a pairing later on with a woman who's not related at all to her or Lestat, and that happens. That I know happens. It happens after I stop reading, but I know that Gabby eventually ends up in this, lesbian coven, and starts dating or being companions with the leader there, Severine. So I know that is a thing that happens. I've told you guys that I haven't read those books, but I know spoilers about stuff that happens. So that's what I'm saying. So there are, and there's other pairings, not just that. There's other pairings in the books that are completely divorced from maker fledgling bond stuff, because the maker fledgling bond doesn't exist in the books. That's some bullshit. I don't want to say bullshit. That's some stuff that was made up for the show in the new show lore and the way that they are changing the powers and changing connections in the show. So I thought that, all throughout season 1 and season 2, I thought the maker fledgling, the vampiric bond that Louis was just talking about, was just an excuse for what he was saying about his homosexual attraction to another man, and that he was using that as like a, catch-all for, gay feelings, basically. And that we were going to learn that there's no such thing as a vampiric bond. Because it was always like a weird thing in season 1 and season 2 where he's like, the vampiric bond, there's no bond like like it. It's like you're the only two people in the world, blah, 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 right? But I was like, he doesn't feel that with Claudia, clearly. Claudia and him don't feel no vampiric bond. So it was a bit surprising when we have moved that out of metaphor and into, no, there's like an actual bond, right? As we got into season 2 and then expanded beyond season 2, now into season 3. And now it's like the vampire bond is a thing, right? So now it's like, well, damn, why didn't Claudia and Lestat feel it? Like, what was going on with their bond? Why was their bond so broken and fucked up? And then we have here this corrupted bond between Lestat and Gabby, where it's gone away to fuel their incestuousness. So they had incestuous desire before that, and then they became maker fledgling, and the bond probably amplified their incestuous desire. I don't want to say it desire because it's more like, you know, it's more like Gabby's abuse of Lestat, you know, not more like it. That's what's happening. But still, it whatever. We had that whole moment where they're like looking into each other's eyes and they're drawn to each other, and it's like hard to tell. Is that the bond? Do you have a bond? Do you not have a bond? Is this the way that your bond is manifesting? Hard to say. But with Armand and Daniel, it's manifesting in a weird way that obviously has nothing to do with the book. So I have no idea where they're going with that. The whole like disappearing people. I thought that was more metaphor. And so I was like, oh, well, why did Louis say he doesn't feel that? And now I'm like, oh, maybe Louis was telling the fucking truth that he doesn't feel this, because this is a very specific thing that's like happening to them over and over every time they're near each other. And I'm like, oh, I don't think Lestat and Louis are feeling that. I know people cite the scene in the ballroom dance in episode 7 of season 1, but that again felt more metaphorical than actual. This feels like actually something is happening. Does that make sense? That felt like, ooh, this is how we felt, you know, like we were the only 2 people in the world. This one is like, no, something about their vampiric bond is happening to them, you know? So we'll see where that goes. I don't know where that's going. So, interesting. All right, what have I talked about? Armand and Alex. Oh, yeah, is Armand and Alex like a proto Devil's Minion? Is he like I don't think they're going to do any Devil's Minion plot lines. But obviously, we're getting past DM and we're getting Devil's Minion with our actual Daniel. But I wonder if he is going to be set up as a parallel to young Daniel in some way, but as a negative. This is not a negative, like, as you know, as an opposite. I meant negative, like with film, as a negative in the sense that this is the positive, this is the negative. This is the Devil's Minion. This is the bond you truly want, Armand, helping him to come to grips with that, versus this facsimile of one that doesn't feel real, that doesn't satisfy you, that isn't what you need and isn't what you want. You know, I wonder if he's being set up like that. Is Alex gonna make it out alive, y'all? Is he dying? To be fair, I've always thought that most of this band is dead by the end of, if not this season, next season. Most of them are gonna be dead. Okay. What do we? Yeah. I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm excited to see where we go in the last 3 episodes. I do still think the season has been quite uneven and difficult to map. It's strange because the first 2 seasons I was able to watch on my own, and so I was able to watch like 2-3 episodes at a time. And I wonder if some of my disconnect or my feelings of unevenness is actually because I'm not sitting down and binging 2 to 3 episodes at a time. I'm watching week to week. Maybe that's contributing to my feeling of weird pacing. But I do feel like there's some weird pacing happening, and there's weird prioritization on certain plot lines or scenes. Like, I don't know if we need all of this, you know, rocker lifestyle shit. You know, I think we could do with less of that and refocus on other things that hold deeper meaning and themes that are going to carry forward through to the end of this show, you know? But anyway, we're not going to belabor it. Let's go. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm 4 hours and 17 minutes into this recording. My God. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Going over to Patreon if you want all of this. Going over to Patreon. I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Whatever, all this ever, but you long gone, it don't matter.